I want to commend our Public Safety Department for treating the little girl, for transporting her to the hospital, and also for investigating the horrific crime that resulted in the mother's boyfriend being charged with second-degree murder. This is a tragedy when something like this happens in our community, and I asked our communications department and our public safety department if they would please put together a list of domestic violence resources, and they're up on the screen right now. I've asked our communications department if they would please also put these on our website, because if anyone in this room, if you yourself or you know of anyone who is the victim of domestic abuse, I would ask that you would please reach out to one of these resources to avoid another horrific tragedy like we've experienced in our city just last week. You know, when I learned about this, I thought just how close Tubman Family Alliance is to where we are right now. Tubman is located in our city. It's a great resource that we have when there is the commission of domestic abuse in our community, and I please ask that you would reach out to one of these resources because there is help that's available, and it's a horrific tragedy. So I wanted to start tonight's meeting with that and also provide the resource for anyone and everyone who may need to reach out and get help, because there is help that's available. So let's move on now. Let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Knudsen?
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio?
Here.
Councilmember Cave?
Here.
Councilmember Juniman?
Here.
Mayor Abrams?
I'm here as well. Thank you. Council members, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Knudsen, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Juniman.
Yes, I'd like to refer to something in the latest copy of the City News.
I'm sorry, what?
I'd like to refer to something that just came in the City News.
Okay. I'd also like to add that Councilmember Juniman is going to be receiving an award in the month of November.
Look at you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to the approval of minutes, we have first the October 10th, 2022 City Council Workshop Meeting Minutes. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the October 10th, 2022 City Council Workshop Meeting Minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any Councilmember Knudsen abstains. He was not present. Thank you. The motion passes. Moving on to the October 10th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the October 10th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Knudsen abstains again. Thank you. The motion passes. Moving on to appointments and presentations, we have our council calendar update. City Manager Coleman, this is your topic.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. The council calendar is meant to just give you a preview of what's coming at our next meetings. On November 14th, we will have an EDA meeting to discuss the Reuter-Walton project, that TIF term sheet for your review. And at the city council meeting the same evening, we will have, we'll be looking for city council review and approval or denial on the Reuter-Walton project. On November 28th, we are planning to have our new rental housing program coordinator come and talk about the annual report. And then on December 12th, our final meeting of the year, our first and only meeting of the year, will be to approve the 2023 budget. With regard to items that you have us working on, we are looking at the catalytic converter ordinance for your review, and I know Public Safety Director Beardeman is working on that with our city attorneys. Also, we have an upcoming community event. I think it's going to be really crazy busy. Been talking to public safety staff today, and they're expecting more than 2,000 families and their kids come to our trunk and treat, which will be right out in the parking lot this Saturday from 1 to 4. And it looks like the weather's supposed to be pretty good. I think you're going to be very busy. Lots of candy. So they stocked up. They ran out in 2 hours last time, so they're going to try to have enough candy. So fingers crossed that we get through that one with all the candy needed. So
Thank you.
that's all I have, Mayor.
That's always a fun event. Anything else that any council additions that you'd like to make?
Thank you.
Okay, then moving on to council presentations. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to call residents' attention to the newest copy of the Maplewood Living that just came to our houses. And there on page 5, you will find all the Parks and Natural Resources Department programs that are now being offered at the Nature Center through the 4-H. So everybody who was beside themselves, including me, when the Nature Center had to close, we found some ways now to start bringing it back. And one of these is through partnerships, and this partnership has become quite an active partnership. So it starts with, well, actually, there was one last week. It starts with November 8th and goes through next April. So make sure you see page 5 of your Maplewood Living for the programs for kids through the Recreation Department through Maplewood Parks and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Councilmember Juniman. And I learned recently that Councilmember Juniman is going to be receiving recognition and a formal award for her contributions to our environment from the Ramsey Washington Watershed District. Councilmember Juniman, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I don't know what you're talking about. I barely know what you're talking
A
about.
very prestigious award.
Every year, the Watershed District gives awards to people for projects in their yards and people who have made contributions to conservation and the environment. And I got a phone call and then a letter about a week and a half ago saying that I was going to get an environmental advocacy award from the Watershed for my work over time. And that's what I know. And when people start listing the projects, I go, oh, really? Because you know, when you just keep going and do one thing after the other, it just sort of becomes all part of the whole. And so you don't really think about the breadth of it until somebody puts it in front of you. And so to say that I'm thrilled is an understatement, and I was very humbled. And when Sage called me, I said, what? Thinking she was going to tell me it was somebody else or somebody on staff or whatever. And then she said, no, that's you. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, I guess. So
It's a great
thank
honor.
you, Mayor.
Congratulations on
And
that.
I am very honored. Thank you.
Moving on our agenda, next we have the resolution for the commissioner appointment. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Just prior to this meeting, you held an interview for a candidate to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission, and that candidate was Laura Koski. You all had an opportunity to approve her nomination or not, and it was an unanimous. Sorry.
I think I know what you meant.
You were all here, right? I'm not here, evidently. Anyway, everybody approved her appointment, so congratulations to her, and I know Joe, who staffs that, will be in contact with her to let her know.
Is she still in the audience?
I
or
don't
did
think
she
so. I
leave?
did go
Okay.
try to find her, and I couldn't
Okay.
find her.
Well,
a
staff
great-
will
She's
announce
gonna be
her
really good,
tomorrow.
I think.
It's a
Yeah.
really great addition. Yeah.
Got a lot of experience in that regard. That's great.
Yep, cool.
Okay, moving on.
I think we
Oh,
need to prove
sorry.
the resolution.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
right. Thank you. Is there a motion to formally recognize her appointment?
I move approval of the resolution appointing Laura Koski to the Heritage Preservation Commission with a term expiring in April of 2025.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Villavicencio. The motion to approve Ms. Koski to the Heritage Preservation Commission. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Now, on our agenda, moving forward, we have a presentation by the League of Women Voters concerning Americans' Disabilities, a study that was conducted by the League of Women Voters. Ann Cleland, are you here?
Oh, there she
Hi. Welcome to the City Council meeting.
Thank you. I'm here with another study member, Rachel Geiser from Maplewood, and also in the audience, we have our Little Canada study member, Mary Peterson. So I'll
Welcome.
give you this information. So during the past 2 years, the League of Women Voters of Roseville area, with members in Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, Little Canada, Maplewood, and Roseville, conducted a study assessing the compliance level of 5 cities with the section of the American Disabilities Act that guarantees access to public buildings and sites. Specifically, the study examined the compliance policy, administration, and physical accessibility by residents who are mobility challenged to government buildings, polling locations, and city recreational venues like parks and playgrounds. Study steps involved contact with the city administrators to answer specific compliance questions, a review of city-developed documents and the city websites, and then in-person visits by committee members like us to all buildings and park facilities to document the ADA-specific requirements. At times, other contacts included the Ramsey County Elections Administrator and the Minnesota Disabilities Council website, which outlines the Minnesota requirements. The individual city analyses were conducted in a report distributed to League members and to each of our 5 cities. The report and raw data also is available on our website, and we do have a PowerPoint presentation, if anyone's interested, available through the League. We did find for cities that most met ADA requirements. Most could easily improve the non-compliancy areas with modifications and limited financial investment. Had non-compliancy predominantly in parking situations, in parks, and in access to polling locations. We recommended you should work to improve the website access to ADA policies, the contact coordinators, and grievance procedures. Should include residents with disabilities in oversight, planning, and visionary groups to better understand their needs. In response to the study findings, the League of Women Voters of Roseville area adopted the following positions. Support ADA compliant opportunities for residents' participation in city government, including early public participation in the decision-making process and open appointments for advisory committees. To support ADA compliant, safe, non-motorized pathways with costs assessed area-wide. Support city government compliance with the ADA requirements in administrative policy and access to and use of city-owned and leased buildings, voting precincts, and recreational locations and facilities. Support compliance by city governments with ADA requirements for identification of an ADA coordinator and grievance policy and easy access to these on the city website. We welcome dialogue on any part of the ADA study report and urge you to include our recommendations as you plan and draft city policies and budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. I want to thank you for this research. I think it's very, very helpful. Councilmember Villavicencio.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. It was great to read. I was just wondering, how long have you been doing these evaluations for cities?
It was a 2-year study. Okay. It started during COVID, so yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Councilmember Knudsen.
I was just wondering, do you get any pushback on the cost of ADA? And
We present this, and then it's for you to decide what you want to go ahead with. But it's a federal law.
yeah,
So. But some of the things are easy, getting the wood chips up to the correct level, marking the parking lots again for handicap accessibility, and van accessible is definitely missing on a lot of them.
think most-
Access
oh,
even
I'm
to
sorry, go
the
ahead.
playgrounds.
Do you think most of it's an oversight or just lack of attention, or? I mean, I read all your lists and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They seem like, that they could use a tune-up.
They could use a tune-up. Yep,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
good to look it
I
over
just-
and realize this has to be on the list.
I've just been
as upgrades go
involved in
on.
a lot of construction and a lot of grumbling sometimes, but I adamantly support this. I think it's a public infrastructure. It's required for every person in our community to have access to any services that we offer in a reasonable access. So I just thank you very much
And the
for doing
new-
what you're doing.
Yeah, the new Wakefield Park, right? It's fabulous. Yeah, it hits every bell and whistle, so it's wonderful.
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Under considerations for Maplewood and specifically, you have adopt a written position description and for a designated ADA coordinator and completed and ongoing compliance with requirements with progress dates. Just for your knowledge base, whenever we do a project of any kind, every department head weighs in on that, and then they do their research on it.
Right.
So,
We
and-
do have that listed, but
And-
there is to be a name, phone number, contact on the website for one person. But it does say that for everything you go through, that you do all discuss that.
Okay, and that would probably then be the city manager, because she oversees all the department heads, so that's kind of easily resolved. And I just want you to know that every time we do a road project as well, we are very aware of what to do at the intersections and the crosswalks and all that type of thing. There's a lot of input on that one.
Yep, I see that in there. It's good
Councilmember
information,
Cave.
yep.
And I just wanted to say thank you. Great project. I know these things do take time, and 2 years is a lot. And our city welcomes any input you have for the ADA. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
Good information. Moving on, we have a presentation concerning Baker Tilly and the compensation study results. Is that going to be
Michael did the intro.
Assistant City Manager Mike Darrow?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city hired Baker Tilly in 2021 to complete a compensation study for all employees within the city of Maplewood. The information that you'll see tonight was presented to all employees, or actually 3 employee meetings. All employees were invited this afternoon. So tonight, Jada Kent from Baker Tilly is here to present the information. We'll discuss the motion options and then answer any questions after her presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, thanks for having me this evening. As Mike said, my name is Jada Kent. I'm here with Baker Tilly. I'm the practice leader over our compensation consulting group.
Can you speak a little bit louder, or
Yeah.
maybe we can, this microphone sometimes is kind of challenging to
I
hear.
can lean in. How about that?
Okay.
So I'm the practice leader over our compensation consulting group, where we do compensation consulting exclusively for local government organizations. And so my presentation is just going to walk through our methodology for doing that study and kind of highlight the major aspects that we hit on, and then kind of how those aspects played into the final results. So talking about the methodology, looking at positions internally as well as externally, and then how the results from both of those pieces of the puzzle came together for, pay plan development, and then a couple of implementation cost scenarios. So in doing a study such as this, we always start with what is the current situation. So getting to know the city, the positions that exist, the work that's being done by those positions, and then how is that work being compensated. So collect a lot of information up front, your existing job descriptions, pay plans, org charts, anything that's really describing how that work is being completed and compensated. We also asked employees to fill out a questionnaire explaining in real time what work they actually and currently in reality do in their jobs, just in case job descriptions may be a little bit off the mark. That was the documentation we leaned on for the whole study. So use those PAQs when we did a position review, reviewing them internally, doing our job evaluation, using those PAQs when we reviewed positions externally, so verifying those market matches, and then having the results from both of those phases kind of plugged in for that pay plan development aspect. And then here we are tonight, finally wrapping up and giving you all the results of the study. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of these phases. Job evaluation is a really big one in Minnesota with the local government pay equity law. This was a big feature in the plan, in the project. So we have our own point factor job evaluation system called SAFE. It was developed specifically to measure local government jobs. And it does so by these 9 compensable factors acting like a measuring stick. It's the same consistent criteria that all jobs are measured against. And then the end result of that process is a total score for every position. So for education, as an example, the different levels of education that may be required by a position, there's a different scoring factor for a high school versus a bachelor's, and then so on. So this process, having that end result be the total score, makes our process compliant with the Minnesota Local Government Pay Equity Law. Those job evaluation scores have to be submitted every 3 years to the state. And it was also the information we used when we got to pay plan development to kind of plug those positions in. So I'll come back to that. For the market piece, we partnered with the city to come up with a list of peer organizations that you guys compare to. So organizations that look like you and work like you. So same size, and that could be revenue, that could be population served, your number of employees, but also similar services. So who you lose police officers to may not be who you lose your accountants to. So making sure we have that diverse list of peer organizations that you compete for with talent. So who you lose employees to, gain them from, just kind of looking at all of those aspects and coming up with a list of peer organizations. For the benchmark positions, usually if we have too many positions to include in the study, we'll focus on the ones we know are common enough that we'll get hits on. In this case, we included all or almost all of the positions in the study. As far as adjustments, the only adjustment we applied was for work week. So especially with firefighters, there's a 56, a 54, 52. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. But making sure we have that hourly rate plugged in at the same point in time. For the quality control aspect, once we had that data back, I just want to point out that no peers data was weighted. Nobody was more important than somebody else. We plugged it all in. It all acted equal. We required at least 3 matches per benchmark position to be able to draw that conclusion of what is the market value. And then when we talk about a good match, it's the best practice definition of a 75% overlap in those duties and responsibilities. So the 15 public peer organizations are kind of outlined here. We were able to get data from 12 of those. The 3 that we did not have data from kind of highlighted. And this is a pretty good turnout to get that much data, especially since COVID and HR departments are run ragged a little bit. They want to participate, probably couldn't, or some just never participate, but we had a good amount of data. So overall, from the market, there are about 69 positions within the city, and 67 of those, were included in the market study. From there, 7 had insufficient data, and so that means less than 3 matches, and we were not able to calculate a market value for those positions. But overall, we ended up with market values for about 86.9% of all of the city's positions. And then the results that we reviewed was average minimum, midpoint, and maximum data based on those matches for benchmark positions. And then we ran a comparison to midpoints. So the midpoint is commonly referenced as the market value for a position. So we looked at what is the current midpoint against the market. And then we had a couple of different thresholds looking at 5% above, 5% below, just different perspectives of the market, knowing that the council wants to be among the best. That's the direction we took, the data that we kind of had in our mind when we framed the pay plan into the next step. So with the pay plan, currently, the city has several pay plans, I would say 7 or more, and they're all doing different things at different times. Some have 9 steps, some have 8, some have 7, different percentages between those steps. We played with the idea of keeping those same amount of pay plans, about consolidating, but really the driving component to this conversation with the city was this local government pay equity requirement. How do we make sure that we're in compliance with it? So we came up with one pay plan for all positions. There's a uniform plan. Everybody's on the same playbook. And that pay plan is a step plan with 18 grades, 10% between each grade, and then 7 steps. So some positions are used to having 3 steps or 7 or 8 or 9 or however many, but they're all going to have these 7 steps be assigned somewhere within those 18 grades. And so when we're talking about those positions being assigned to this uniform plan, back to the local government pay equity rule, it's the job evaluation. So the market data helped us frame the new pay plan, but it's job evaluation which is driving those grade assignments into that pay plan. So here's kind of a snapshot of what that pay plan looks like from a chart view. This view is helpful in terms of seeing where the overlap is and isn't with each pay range. So you can see it goes 1 through 18, and just kind of from grade 1 through however many grades there is an overlap. So a healthy amount of overlap, but not so much that you can't encourage folks to move on and take on that responsibility and progress through their career. We also ran a regression analysis. So with the end result of job evaluation being that total score, you can see kind of along the bottom represents the safe job evaluation scores, and along the left side is the market. So each of those dots represents a benchmark position where their job evaluation and their market data intersects. So this blue line is that line through the regression. There is about an 82% correlation between those data sets, which is high, and we expect it to be because that just means a manager is a manager in the market and internally, right? So it also means that our safe job evaluation system can be adopted by the city moving forward to maintain this new class and comp system. So if you get a new job, if these jobs change, you'll be able to evaluate it and see what grade assignment it should be in relative to those changes. The regression also helps us notice any outliers we may have. So if some of these benchmark positions are just kind of floating in space, then we need to take another look at either one side or the other, market or job evaluation. And then these other lines represent the proposed pay plan. So it helps us make sure we've built a pay plan that is competitive and within the frame of all of these positions. So kind of the natural distribution of your jobs, and then does this pay plan fit with those positions? So from there, having the pay plan, having the positions assigned to the new pay plan, we looked at the individuals in those positions. So up to this point, we were looking at positions only. There was not the person in consideration at all. It was the merits of the position and where it should be assigned to that pay plan. And then for implementation, looked at what are the salaries relative to these new pay ranges. The three categories you'll see on the left, if an individual salary was below their new minimum, if their salary was somewhere within their new pay range, or if it was above the maximum. So first things first, we want to get those 13 employees up to at least the minimum because they're below. And then the second thing is we need to get everybody on a step. So those 124 employees are moving actually onto a step that is as close to their current salary without a decrease. So I want to highlight that this implementation scenario, no one loses money. Even these 28 employees who are above their maximum, our recommendation, as is the best practice, to just red circle them until the market catches up. We don't recommend taking anyone's pay away. But this implementation scenario is really just to implement the new class and comp system. And so kind of our takeaway, we're asking the council to accept this new class and comp plan. Some of the kind of parting gifts, Baker Tilly is still working on job description updates based on the results of the study. But then we also encourage the city to just kind of continue efforts such as these. Keep an eye on the market, keep job descriptions updated so that those kind of housekeeping tasks in between doing studies like these just kind of keeps the city moving in the right direction. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jada. I know that this has taken some time to pull all of this information together. It really is important to make sure that we pay our employees fairly and that we have a pay study like this, and to make sure that we're also in compliance with the law. Council members, do you have any questions for Jada? Councilmember Cave.
No questions, just a comment. And for everybody out there, we've worked with Jada and Mike and Melinda on this project. It seems, when you present it, it seemed like a lot of stuff that went by quick, but we've been working on this for months. So this is just kind of like a review for everybody up here. And, you've done a great job because you took this out of the city's hands and took this on and did it with government compliance. So I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that point. We have been working on this for months. Councilmember Knudsen.
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering, how does this model keep up with the kind of the rapid increase in some positions and about internal equity compared to I'm in this position, but to get new recruits, I got to pay more?
So The new pay plan, I mean, this is a snapshot in time, and this market is not like any market we've ever lived through. You can't even predict what's going to happen. But if pretend it was a normal market, it's still perishable. So you still need to do things to keep pace with the market, keep your pay plan adjusted, either through COLA, move your employees through merit. So there is still some pay policies and housekeeping things you would need to do anyway, but with the market as crazy it is, probably doing a little bit extra eye on the market to make sure that your pay ranges stay competitive, moving people through them just the same, but a little heavy on that market, keeping an eye on it.
So, thank you. But
Councilmember?
just for the council, I mean, my question, this is to accept the study. What we do with it is
Correct.
down the road, so.
Council members, it sounds like we're going to have more work to do. Actually, our staff will have more work to do. It's kind of a never-ending kind of a thing. Council members, there is a motion in our packet. Would someone like to make it?
Move approval to accept the Baker-Tilly compensation study report?
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Juniman, the motion to accept the Baker-Tilly compensation study report. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by, Councilmember Juniman.
Sorry, Mayor. Just with a historic perspective, when you heard at the beginning how many levels we had before and how many steps and how many, it's amazing that we meaning the city and mainly management, keep track of how appropriate it is to what we're supposed to be doing and so on. And it was long overdue to be doing this to bring it all to where we might be able to understand it and all the employees can understand it too. So thank you.
Okay, council members, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda, we have 5 items on our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll motion consent agenda items G1 through G5.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, consent agenda items G1 through 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight. We have an unfinished business. The award of the 2023 charitable gambling funds is next. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. At our last meeting, we gave you a score sheet to look at the requests for charitable gambling funds. Every year, we get requests for funds that far exceed the resources that we have, and that is the case this year as well. The City Council received 13 applications with almost $72,000 in requests for projects for this year's priority category, which is youth programs and community engagement and events. The budgeted amount to award is $50,000. In the council packet, you'll see a list of the 13 agencies that requested awards. You see the amount that was requested, and then the recommended award, which is an average of all 5 of you and how you awarded those, and those are in the packet. Mayor, they were posted on our webpage in the packet, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and otherwise, your tally sheet is in the packet as well as the final recommended award.
Councilmember Juniman, you have a question?
Actually, a comment. Since staff helped us with this new system where we have specifics, it really seems to fall into place better. It's a more efficient use of the funds. And when you look down for amount requested and a recommended award, they're at least close. And so we're kind of seeing that this means something when you can say, we do these kinds of activities, can you help us with them? And they're getting enough of an award that will help them with what they're doing, and yet we can spread it out. So I think the system is really working. It's really improved from what we used to do, believe me.
I would agree. Since my time on the council, I think this is the most money that we've been able to give away for the charitable gambling funds. And I really do think that this particular system, where we focus on who can apply, I think that really works because I think these groups were able to get their funding that they requested. Next year, we have environment and natural resources and safety programs that can apply for the charitable gambling funds. So we'll look forward to that for next year. Council members, would someone like to make the motion?
I move that we approve the proposed award amounts for the charitable gambling.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave. The proposed award amounts contained in our council packet. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We have new business on the agenda, which is what I think everyone has been waiting for. Thank you for your patience as we've been able to take care of the business of the city. As you can tell from our agenda, it's pretty wide in terms of, we talk about salary, we talk about charitable gambling funds, we talk about ADA compliance. So there's a lot of important business that we were able to take care of tonight too, including the purchase or the planned purchase of 2 new ambulances, one in next year and one in 2024. That was approved during our consent agenda. So we are now moving to the resolution regarding the Purple Line. And what I thought I would do is I would kind of outline how we're going to kind of work through this particular issue. I'll start off with an introduction on the issue, and then I will ask our council members if they would like to make any initial comments. And then I'm going to ask for public comment. If you would like to comment, you should sign up in the back of the room with your name. There's a sign-up sheet back there. Please sign up. I want to remind everyone that we have a public civility policy that we follow here. This is an important discussion for our community, and I really want to encourage all of you to share your thoughts with us. What I'm really particularly interested in is constructive ideas on the East Metro transit solutions. I'd like if you could possibly identify stakeholders who should be present for engagement, because I think that's really going to help the council shape our discussion. Once we go through the public comment portion of our meeting, then there will be a discussion up here at the council dais, and then finally we will consider the motion that is in our packets to reevaluate our support for the Purple Line and create an engagement plan. So that is really what we're going to do tonight and how we're going to do this in an organized fashion. I will tell you that the council has been provided with both an email and several other handouts, I think, that people wanted passed out. They've been provided to the council, so we have those for our review as well. So with that, let's get started with this important public discussion. I brought this forward to our last council meeting, and I think what I heard from the council is that we support transportation. The concern that we have is concerning the Purple Line, the proposed plans in light of the post-pandemic world that we are living in and the significant changes that we've been experiencing with workplaces and transportation. I looked carefully at the transit maps that are on the Met Council website. I think the most recent one is August of 2022, and it's pretty apparent that the south and western suburbs enjoy a variety of transit options. The East Metro has a transit deficit, which really puts our community at a disadvantage in terms of future jobs and our property values. The challenge is in determining the right type of transit that the East Metro needs and will need over the next 10 to 20 years. At our last meeting, the council expressed concerns about the Purple Line. In particular, I have raised questions about the process being used to determine our transit needs. Specifically, I raised concerns about the lack of post-pandemic ridership data. There just doesn't seem to be any. And we know that transit has changed post-pandemic. I believe that when you use a good process, it'll be more likely that it will result in a good project, a good result. In terms of the purple line, there are several key components missing, and I really want to focus on those key components. The purple line is, I believe this is the most accurate and up-to-date number, a $450 million public infrastructure project that stands to substantially change our community. Maplewood, from my experience on the council, is accustomed to a very robust public engagement process in everything that we try to accomplish. If it's our park master plan, if it's the ponds, if it's our north end, we engage our community, and that's what we've grown accustomed to. The importance of our future transit is depending on using such a good process based on data and input from stakeholders, which brings us here tonight. You know, I've kind of identified some of the stakeholders that I think are important in terms of public engagement, and we'll be talking about those because that's really, I think, the center of our the resolution that's before the council. Not only do we need good data to take a look at ridership projections, we need to figure out who needs transit and where they need to go from point A to point B. We also need to identify the stakeholders, and council members, I made a list of some, and I'm sure that I missed some, so I'm going to ask if anyone has any other ideas of anyone that should be participating in this engagement process. I'd certainly like to know about it. And I also want you to think about what data do we need that is really going to help us, because transportation is important. So in terms of stakeholders, residents, obviously you're here today, you're a stakeholder. Our businesses are also stakeholders. Century College, there are 17,000 credit and non-credit students who attend Century College. Now, I recognize that they are not, Century College is just over the border, it's in White Bear, but nevertheless, it is an important facility that basically is in our community. Naturalists, I know from the handouts that we've received that naturalists are an important component to this discussion as well. Now, I'm sure I've missed somebody, and so please chime in if you have any suggestions on stakeholders that should be engaged with us in determining what's really going to be the best transit for us into the future, because what we're looking at is the next 10 or 20 years in our community, and what should that look like? So I am looking forward to the discussion and to hearing from you. First, it's going to be the council, and then we'll open it up. Councilmember Juniman, your light's on.
Yeah, I just have three basic thoughts that came to my mind and how I'm going to be hearing what I hear, and does it fit these for me at least. First of all, I think we have to make the assumption we need mass transit. I don't think we can say anymore we don't need that. There's a lot of reasons for that, but there's three major ones. Our businesses have said we do. Our workers have said they want some kind of mass transit, either from another place to come here to work or who live here and need to go like downtown. And our residents, it's a mixed bag. Not everybody wants it to go away. Some people actually want it to come here. And you can tell by looking at me, I'm an age where the children of my friends are in that part of their lives where they're deciding how they're going to live. And a great number of them don't want a car. They live in other parts of the country, and they come home and say, Mom, why do you still have two cars? They think their parents are daft. Well, we're in a car-centered universe right here. And if we're going to worry about the next 15 to 20 years, we kind of have to shift that a little bit to include more than the car-centered universe. And I think our current and future housing projects tell us that many people who rent in particular rely on or prefer mass transit. So we have to, that has to be a consideration in our subconscious at least while we're evaluating this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I don't know who was next. We're going to go to the public comment in a few minutes, but right now this is our process. So next we have Councilmember, I don't know if Councilmember Villavicencio, you were next. I didn't see when the lights went on.
Thank you, Mayor. As the only Maplewood council member who does not drive, I depend on public transit. Maplewood is a city of 41,000 people of all kinds. Demographics have changed, yes. COVID has changed many things, yes. But for many marginalized people, how they need to get to work or school has not changed. People who work, for instance, for fast food, grocery stores, clinics, schools, home care, pharmacies, community centers, they still need fast, consistent public transportation. The bus rapid transit is the option best fit for this area because it will bring a consistency that the lines we currently have do not have. We all know that winter is a huge part of Minnesota life. Currently in Maplewood, our bus stops are not unified. Few have shelters, some have benches, and some stops leave you in the middle of the street, literally. BRT would address all of these things. So if the current system worked, we would use that. As the designs for the stations and their locations, I too agree there is much to discuss about those projects, and those projects are definitely not set in stone, those station designs. Public engagement is a huge part of transparent government. As someone who started in politics as an advocate, public engagement is sacred to me. I do want us to have genuine engagement that brings the community together. As we age and time goes by, the community's needs will change. We need to make sure that young and marginalized people's voices are at the center of these decisions, because that's who's going to use the bus. I think it is in the best interest of the community as a whole to not suspend the process, but to ask for a more robust engagement process.
Thank you. Councilmember Knudsen, you're next.
Thank you, Councilmember Villavicencio. You took a lot of my words. The reason I asked the question, I was serious about the ADA, but I wanted to go into really what we all need to think about. And that's just, what does the government, what does the public expect of us? When we talk about ADA compliance, that's expected now, because that's a consideration for people that need that kind of assistance. It's the same thing with public transit. There's a population of people that absolutely need that public transit. And what's important then is, how do we engage those that have discretion? Those that say, I want to use public transit if. So we got to understand what that if means, but fundamentally provide public transportation for anyone that doesn't need a car, can't afford a car, doesn't want a car. We absolutely need to do that. And one of the things I want to clarify, I'm thinking about, is get a lot of comments about the empty lot on 61 and C, which I used to take the express to Minneapolis. Work-life changes, COVID has changed. I'm right now considering what I do with my office. Got a big office in Roseville, and everybody's working from home. What about the people that work 3 days a week in the office? All that stuff needs to match. But the express bus is different than what we're talking about. So the comments you get about an empty parking lot, I understand, because that's changed. But what we're talking about is basically providing that basic transportation for someone that wants to go to somewhere in St. Paul up to the Maplewood Mall, or the Maplewood or area down to St. Paul. That's a different conversation than express buses, in my opinion. So we need to engage businesses. Words matter. I would say that our word to suspend this is probably accurate and appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cave.
And thank you all for coming. I like listening to all my council members. Everyone's got an opinion up here. My opinion is, I do believe in public transit. I do believe people need to get around on it. Listening to a council member who is disabled and uses it, she mentioned things like bus stops and all these things aren't appropriate. Well, to me, I think that that's a problem there. We need to fix those problems. We need to fix the bus stops and make them usable for people. We don't need to reinvent a whole new line and have all this stuff that's already there just disappear. I think when we talked to the Met Council and we had Ramsey County here, one of the big concerns I had was all the data. The data wasn't coming to us, I didn't feel, truthfully. data that we asked for, ridership data after COVID, before, instead of pre-COVID, all of a sudden we asked for the information, never came back to us. We were like, what are the numbers? And it was quiet. And then all of a sudden they decided to move forward with a project that we asked to halt on. I'm concerned that, yes, we will be transparent with this. I want to be transparent with this. I feel like it wasn't in the past because otherwise we wouldn't have a room full of people here now. My concerns with that is that, you know, the past council said yes to this project without really listening to everybody. Everybody feels that we all know the best up here, but we're up here because of you. We're here to serve you, not what we all feel is the best for ourselves. So I'm here to listen to you, hear what you have to say, and understand that you have a whole council up here that is going to listen to what you have to say tonight. Thank you.
I would say that. Thank you, council members. I just want to. I really appreciate my council members and your input. This is really an important topic for our community to discuss. The point I think that brings us here today is the fact that the original proposals for the Purple Line, they were subject to a lot of public engagement. But all of that is pre-COVID. We are in a completely different time now, and it is entirely appropriate to revisit this. This is a very large public infrastructure. I know we've had questions up here at the DS before about the efficacy of the project and about whether or not that type of expenditure is something that is warranted. And it's pretty hard for us to make a decision when, back in June, the staff that were here from the Met Council assured us that there would be ridership numbers. It's a really large expenditure. We also were assured about public engagement because we haven't had any concerning any proposed new routes, and that is a concern as well. When I accidentally learned about some of the significant changes that were being proposed to the north end, that raised some real concerns for me because it seemed that that was contrary to what we were told as a council back in June. What I learned included some pretty drastic changes to the north end, including using the Met Council's condemnation process, which is the taking of private property for a public good. I learned about that only by accident, and that was a real concern to me. Also, some of the changes in terms of what would happen to the Maplewood transit station, that was deemed to be too large, that would be made smaller. These were all a lot of different proposals that the Met Council staff was moving forward with, but none of us had any of that information, and none of you had that information. And because of that, that brings us here today. And in my estimation, we have had a flawed process. I'm a very process-driven person, and I really believe that we need to follow logical steps. And in my mind, before you spend $450 million on a transit project, you better have some data that supports what it is that you're proposing. I've been out walking in the neighborhoods, and I have talked to a lot of people, and I think that there's a lot of creative ideas out there. Just looking at the transit map on the Met Council website, the western and southern suburbs have a lot of different transit options that we don't have over here. Transit over here is very sparse, and so what I want to do is make sure that the transit that we decide is best for our community is what is best for our community, and that we all decide that, because it is a great expense. That's why we're here tonight. And so it's important for us to have this discussion, and this really, I just want to make it absolutely clear, and I said this last time, I said it twice in fact, to really reiterate the point. I think every one of us up here at the DS, we all support transit. Listen, folks, if we don't have transit in 10 to 20 years, people are not going to be able to get jobs over here on the East Metro side of town. And what will happen to our property values, because people will not be able to get over here, they aren't going to be working over here. We need transit, but the question is, what transit? We need to, as a group, figure that out. And I really believe that we can figure that out in a very intelligent, data-driven way where we have input. We need to come up with some creative solutions. And I'm not certain that we have that creative solution on the books right now. Let's figure that out so that we can get the transit that we need. Because if we don't, I think the East Metro will be disadvantaged in terms of jobs and development and businesses and your property values, because people aren't going to want to buy houses over here if they can't get around. So let's figure this out together. That's what this really is about. I see one more comment, and then we're going to go to our public comment. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you. This is just a slight verification. When the council said yes, like 4 years ago, all we were saying yes to was looking into what kind of a transit system we should have. Doesn't seem like we've made a whole lot of progress. We weren't saying we'll buy into whatever you send our way. That's not what we said. We said we agree that we need to look at a system that helps cover the East Metro, because we have nothing. But we didn't say, yeah, whatever you say is wonderful. We didn't. And I am totally in agreement with the mayor. We need to get an idea that works for everybody. But we have to remember we can't just tell mass transit to go away. We have to be creative. We have to say, yes, now what are we going to do, where are we going to put it, et cetera. And it's a little hard for us to be transparent when the people that are supposed to be working with us or for us aren't. The fact that she had to find this out by accident is kind of revealing to me. So step one in this for me is rebuilding trust. They have to convince me, or us, that we can trust they want to work with us to get what this community needs. Because in my estimation, they blew it at step one. So I guess it's an advantage for them in a way if they want to take advantage of it. Start over, talk to us about it. But we cannot just say, well, you didn't play right, so you have to go away. That's not an option. We have to bring them back in and say, this community needs this. And they don't seem to know what that is, so we're going to try and help them.
Thank you, council members. What I would like to have come out of this meeting tonight is that obviously the council will ultimately be deciding on the motion, but I would really like us to be able to develop an engagement plan by the end of November that we would, as a city, relay to the Met Council as to what types of engagement we want. Who are the stakeholders? What data do we need in order to help us figure this out? Last council meeting, when I outlined the information that I came across, I indicated that I felt very much that this was something that the Met Council was doing to us rather than something that they were doing with us. And as Maplewood, what I would like to be able to do is for our council to go back to the Met Council and say, this is the type of engagement that we want. This is the kind of information that we need in order to make smart transit decisions, because this is an impact on our community, and I think we all need to weigh in on what is going to work. So with that, council members, City Clerk Sint, can I have the list, please? We are going to go to public engagement, and once again, what I am looking for is how do we resolve transit? All you have to do is pull up on your phones, look at what the Met Council has for the East Metro, and you will see we have a deficit of transit, and we need to address that. But what does that look like? I don't know, but I really believe that as a city, we can help direct this. We can help guide this. So this is transit that operates for everybody. So who are the stakeholders that we need to have at the table? What kind of information do we need? We need data, because I haven't seen any data at all. And we need to definitely know that, because this is a very different day than it was back in January of 2020, pre-pandemic. because transit needs are different. But what we also have to do is we have to think proactively. What are we going to need into the future? And how do we do that? What is the best transit for our community? So let's start with, and I'm sorry, I'm going to probably not say your names right, Kathy Sidlis. Okay, what we have is a timer, and so you can keep an eye on the timer. We have a number of people who would like to speak tonight, and I would also encourage you that if someone else has already made the same type of suggestions that you've made, you certainly don't feel like you have to be obligated just because your name is on the list, but I want to give you an opportunity if you have something that you would like to add to the conversation, and that's really what this is. So please, Kathy, welcome.
Yeah, it's Kathy Seidels.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm from 6 blocks east of Lake Phelan in St. Paul, so thanks for letting me talk here anyway. So what would achieve, from what I see, most people don't like the present design since it doesn't accomplish either goal of better transit or better urban wildlife corridors. What would achieve these goals and recycle the great east side mix of housing styles as it all gets sold at once is the second original option of bus rapid transit on new 35E, on the new 35E lanes. That was the second option 7 years ago that wasn't picked. But go both north and south like 35W does, and add into the plan, which wasn't the original plan, building these great new stations that people like and are accessible. But for add the new fast buses on existing streets so they can be moved around as things change and things are tried out, to going to bus rapid transit. And of course downtown there is not even a bus on Phelan Boulevard right now. And add into the plan making the Bruce Venno Bike Trail a regional park with interpretive programs for urban families. And I've been through this process in St. Paul for the whole 7 years, go to open houses, find out. I'm a park steward. I pick up trash along that trail, talk to people along the trail, upload pictures of birds to eBird, bumblebees to Bumblebee Watch. I've seen 127 endangered rusty patch bumblebees. When I heard this trail was going to be bulldozed, people said, and they were shocked because at least our part of the trail, and most of it is like the most beautiful trail in the state, with all kinds of wildlife and migrating birds, and where the birds get their new feathers and toads hopping across. You can see the pictures, I have all kinds of pictures from when I work there and pull up garlic mustard, clean up homeless tent camps, et cetera. And so people said, find an endangered species that will stop it. And so to my surprise, I did, the endangered rusty patch bumblebee, and I've seen 127 of them since 2016 up along the trail, most of those on the east side someplace, Gladstone over to the Poor Farm Cemetery. And they're all documented and on Bumblebee Watch and iNaturalist, and I have videos, showing that, yes, I am seeing these in the city. And so these, having this plan or something like it that fits your city is a good way to recycle housing more cheaply and get good transit and save the rusty patch bumblebee.
Thank you, Kathy. And the council has copies of this, of your email. Next we have David Nelson, Minnesota Master Naturalist, thank you.
I agree with Kathy. We need to save the Bruce Venno Trail. A lot of people use it. A lot of and the endangered species are there. You probably heard lately the monarch butterfly is endangered, and that we lost part of it in Texas because the monarch butterfly takes 4 steps coming back. When it flies to South America, it flies the jet stream all the way down. When it was in Texas, my daughter is a wildlife biologist. They lost 70% of the bluebirds and 70 or 60% of the butterflies. They froze because they make the worm, lay the egg there, and everything, so they're wiped out. That's why we don't have the butterflies up here. So they're endangered now because of what happened. And as far as the bus line, I would like to see it go to either 35 or 61 or White Bear. They can get up to 694, make a right to 120, right to the college. That's a speed shot all the way. And you won't be taking away the trail where the people can enjoy it, they jog it. If you ever seen a little child out there, we show them a butterfly, and that she's got the biggest smile. She's sitting there with her finger trying to get the butterfly to land on her finger. You'll never forget that. Honestly, that this is for the young people that don't know much about nature. We're trying to educate them as master naturalists. And that I also would like to pay a compliment to the City Council and Maplewood. I was very pleased all the goats you used for removing buckthorn, because part of my, as a master naturalist, is removing invasive plants. I have, 123 gavels I made out of buckthorn. I got 7 of them in Washington, D.C., 4 of them in the state of Senate, and the other ones is people who donated money to take and help for the birds, and also people that volunteered that did extra work. So that's where all the buckthorn gavels went. And they're beautiful. If you take and just rotate them, you'll see something different every time. But no, it's 35, 61, or White Bear goes directly to 694, make a right, 120, make a left, and you're right at the college. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Pete Boulay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, for letting us speak tonight. I'm a big fan of mass transit. My son takes Metro Mobility almost every day. I used to take the 272 from the Express station, and I was on the HPC as chair. I was part of the Gold Line process and also the Purple Line. And I have to say, talking with the consultants, I learned really quickly. I just couldn't find them completely honest. I asked them right away, is there any plans to eliminate routes? Because that was one of my main concerns. And one of my questions was, what about the express routes at the Transit 272? And they said, no, we won't cancel those. And they did a couple months later. So it was hard to take it. And, my idea for them was to model after the A line on Snelling. It cost $27 million. And I think it works great. The imprint is a lot less, and they're going to redo, there's plans to redo Arcade anyway. Right now, if I wanted to take a bus, I have 4 bus benches, and the only time a bus will ever stop there is the change they add on those benches. At C and 61, there's no stops, even though there's 4 bus benches. So closest bus I could take is Beam in 61 right now. So I'm a fan of transit. I do think there should be a Purple Line. I just think in the proposed that's right now is not what's in the cards for now. It's completely changed from before COVID, and we got to start over.
Thank you. Glenn Yackel. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having us speak this evening. I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you folks have adequately plowed the ground as to how uninclusive the Metropolitan Council has been in this project. Not just this project. After 40 years in state government, I harbor a pretty harsh opinion about Met Council. They should be abolished. But anyway, that being beside the point, there are alternatives to the Purple Line, running buses through people's yards, backyards. I'm looking at the September issue of our Maplewood newsletter, and it talks about back in '92 when the trail was first put there, the Vento Trail. And it said it was also designated as there are signs posted along the route indicating that it was going to be have potential future transit use. Potential being the operative word, I don't believe that that's a mandate. There have to be alternatives to it. Running buses through people's backyards is just not a good idea. It just isn't. I believe a gentleman here addressed some alternatives. A single line like this, I don't believe is going to meet the councilman's opinions about, you know, her presentation about, you know, transit, because transit's important. I mean, there's no question. No one, I don't think anyone in this room tonight opposes transit. Not at all, and especially the dearth that we seem to be experiencing on the east side. However, this purple line on the Vento Trail, it just doesn't make sense. To me, it just does not make sense. Further, we have a Metropolitan Council who is extending, I think, what is it, the blue line out in the southwest corridor out there. I think they started at $1 billion price tag. I think they're at 2.7 now, and they're stopped dead in their tracks. They say they need another $500 million, which may not do it. This is a group that I'm not sure is skilled enough and equipped to handle projects like this. I'm quoting now former Governor Jesse Ventura's transportation commissioner. He was asked on camera by the news media, what do you think the problem is with this transit issue? And he said the Metropolitan Council is ill-equipped to manage a project such as this. That being the case, there's alternatives. There's alternatives. You're going to explore them all. You have a lot of work ahead of you, and I salute you for doing it. But I, for one, would hate to see that wonderful Bruce Vento Trail be converted to a busway. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Now, can I ask you to please hold off on the clapping? I think that would be a better choice. Thanks. Jane Coleus with the No Rush Line Coalition.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. As you stated, I'm Jane Colias. I live at 2221 Ide Court in Maplewood. I'm a lifelong Maplewood resident. I grew up behind the Keller Golf Course, and currently my husband and I live on Ida, as I said, and the Bruce Vento Trail is in our backyard. And I currently co-lead the No Rush Line Coalition. You've probably seen our T-shirts. We are a group of citizens from multiple communities. We have been informing, educating on facts, talking and listening to folks for 18 months. And we really do believe we have the pulse on what the community wants. We are not opposed to public transportation. We want effective and efficient use of transportation dollars, and we want the right fit for the transit users and the communities. We have done our research, as you asked about, making sure we have some data, and we have done our research over these last 18 months. We have 4,500 people signed petitions back in 2018 and 2019. We've held 2 public forums here in Maplewood with 250 plus attendees at these forums. We have approximately 800 signed cards from people. So we're getting out there and trying to really educate people on the project. We do agree with the City of Maplewood that that should withdraw support of the Purple Line, as Mayor Abrams had said. We agree that the BVT should be protected and preserved, as Councilmember Knutson said at that October 10th. And we are hearing from the residents of Maplewood that demand 3 key items be included in that resolution that you're actually going to speak about tonight. So we do want to add these items to that resolution: that the Bruce Vento Trail be permanently dedicated as a non-motorized vehicle trail, and that the Purple Line BRT modification study be suspended until a project design and community engagement process is completed and improved by the City of Maplewood to find alternative BRT routes. Number 2, updated ridership. We also look for that. Updated ridership, cost and sustainability data be updated, provided to community, and analyzed as part of the process. And a third point, to your point about being a stakeholder, the No Rush Line Coalition should be part of the project design and community engagement process. We bring extensive community data, perspective gained through public forums, transportation studies, and community engagement. I do have some copies of this resolution that we'd like to pass out and put on public record, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Can I do that?
Do you want to give it to the city clerk? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Tim David, also with the No Rush Line Coalition. Do you have anything new that you'd like to add?
We have a couple additional.
Okay, thank you.
Couple additional thoughts about ideas to expand on the
Good.
information that Jane provided. So yes, I am Tim David, and council members and mayor, I first applaud you for conducting this discussion. This is very, very significant. Regarding ideas for transit, as Jane said, we've done a lot of research, and we want to offer to you that it's not just this community that is struggling with ideas as to what transit should look like post-COVID. The American Public Transportation Association, the Vice President of Policy, has stated post-COVID, transit will come back differently. We'll have to adapt to the changes. So these are the professionals in public transit. The Center for Transportation Studies at the U of M, the director of that Transportation Studies group, said transportation choices have been impacted hugely by COVID across the board. We should think about all of our planned projects in a new way. So it's very appropriate to be thinking about different ideas, new ideas for what transit should look like in your community. Charlie Zell was referenced. Here's another quote from Charlie Zell. Charlie Zell, Metropolitan Council Chair, said, "We don't have a clear picture of the long-term future of commuter transit demand and needs." So it's very appropriate to suspend and reevaluate what transit should look like in your community. So now to the more specific 5 key ideas for transit design. As it's been mentioned by a number of folks, dedicate the Bruce Vento Trail to non-vehicle transit. Use existing roadways for transit services. Existing roadways from Maplewood to St. Paul. You have a number of corridors, Highway 61, White Bear Avenue. You have routes now that will currently get your folks to Century College. Use existing roadways. We think transit in the future should be flexible. The idea of designing and planning 20 years prior for what is happening today is not practical. We think transit is going to continue to change. Users' needs will change. We encourage you to have flexible transit. And on that note of flexibility, we have researched a number of types of transit that currently are available. There are local connectors that can get folks to close destinations where they want to be. Metro Mobility, we think, is a great transit service. We hear repeatedly from folks, including at the legislature, that Metro Mobility is not properly funded. We think it should be properly funded. We think it's a great service. Transit Link currently is a service provided by the Met Council that provides curb to curb for anyone who needs to get to a destination where there is not a local connector available. New Tracks is a service that serves the Northeast metropolitan area. They are a semi-profit. Metro Micromobility, and just the last sum is, we think the most important idea for public transit is a project design and community engagement process for transit be developed and implemented by the community that will be impacted by the public transit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell me your name and I'll cross it off? Okay. Barbara Shendell Kent.
Hi. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and speak to you guys. I'm here as an environmental advocate. So I'm so proud to live in a city where I know that you guys value some of the same things that I do. I've lived here since 2013, and I've talked to several of the people in Steve Love's Public Works Department trying to figure out, trying to get them to not mow to preserve pollinator habitat, and you guys were so helpful. And I know that in 2016, you guys passed a resolution to make it official to really support pollinator habitats. I mean, it's so awesome to live in a city that cares about things like that. So I just want to first thank you for caring about things like that. And I know that you guys have a climate adaptation plan, and you signed up to be a Minnesota Green Step city. So all of these things definitely show where your heart is on some of these issues that are so important. And so with those things in mind, that's kind of why this bus line thing doesn't seem to be quite in keeping with some of that, because, we have, like 6 miles of these, this tree canopy that took 30 years to get to be that way, and it would need to be clear cut in order to do this bus line. But on the topic of sustainability, mass transit is sustainable. I mean, it's a lot more sustainable than cars, assuming people use it. So I definitely love that you're thinking about, how can we add in more mass transit, but I think it would make the most sense to find a way to do that in a way that also preserves pre-existing commitments and priorities like the environment. So just reevaluate the location of where this line can go so that we're not clear-cutting existing mature tree coverage, but using already, maybe an existing route. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Kevin Schmidt.
Council members, thank you for hearing us this evening. Just a couple of points, maybe not as well put as everyone else, but I'll do my best. First of all, this line going through the middle of Maplewood hasn't really been asked for by the community. This isn't coming, there isn't a huge up.
Could you speak a little bit closer, because this is also being recorded and sure. People will not be able to hear it well.
The community has not been out there protesting or saying we don't have enough mass transit in our neighborhood. In particular, the part from downtown St. Paul up to the Maplewood Mall, we have buses that go down English right now that are predominantly empty. I drive that. In the past, I've drove it every day, and see buses all the time that are sitting there empty. So to think that we're going to fill these buses just because we put more of them there doesn't necessarily follow that would happen. This would be very disrupting to our community, to this neighborhood. This is predominantly a single family housing in this area, and it's being pushed through neighborhoods that are not that just don't have enough people that are trying to use mass transit. And the argument that if we don't have mass transit, that our home prices are going to plummet and that no one's going to be able to have jobs out here on the east side, there's no proof of that's going to happen. We haven't seen that to this point, and we haven't seen that places where mass transit has been put in particular, if you look at between Minneapolis and St. Paul, housing prices along there have not increased in value. They've barely kept up with the market. So it's not a given that we're going to, that this is all going to be, this is going to help all of our home values or help our community be better. So I think as far as things that we should be looking for, we should be looking at more flexible options. The people that live in this community, in these communities in general, they like that we live in a relatively small town feel. We're not an urban center, and we don't really want to be an urban center. If there's plenty of places to go downtown and get downtown housing in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and if we wanted to do that, that's where we would go. So as people age and as people need to live in our communities that possibly can't drive or don't want to drive, maybe we need to be looking at more technological solutions to be able to get people to where they need to go without having something that is so dedicated and disruptive to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana Longery.
Thank you very much. Diana Longery, living at 1778 DeSoto Street in Maplewood. And I've been in Maplewood since 1983. First, I want to say, with all due respect, looking at the motion in the packet, it is not a motion to withdraw Maplewood's support for the Purple Line. It is merely a motion to pause the modification study until this process of engagement is established. It doesn't even set forth that the pause continue until the engagement process is completed. 2, transit in Maplewood. Certainly, in my opinion, transit in Maplewood includes the Bruce Vento Trail permanently dedicated as a non-motorized trail. Because after all, bicycles, walking, and whatever else you do on the wonderful Bruce Vento Trail is all transit modes. They're just not motorized. And it's important to preserve and protect our Bruce Vento Trail. So any resolution that comes out of this council that does not include that permanent dedication of the Bruce Vento Trail as a non-motorized trail really, in my opinion, is not worth the paper it's written on. But what are some of the other visions of transit in Maplewood? One, that all bus stops, every bus stop in the wintertime is shoveled out so that people who use the bus in Maplewood don't have to be climbing over snowbanks. This is a very important thing. If you want people to use the bus, make it so it's practical and easy for them to do so. A simple thing as making sure those bus stops are shoveled out, making sure we have benches, making sure that they are handicap accessible. And you can certainly do all of those things. Also, stakeholders. I think it's already been mentioned, but the No Rush Line Coalition should be a stakeholder because for 18 months, we have been working diligently in getting resident engagement. We have an extensive transportation use survey that has surveyed people who live in apartments, senior complexes, single-family housing, seniors, millennials, every age range there is. That's from 18 to who I think the oldest person was 95. So we have that data. We should be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve Samuelson.
Hi, Steve Samuelson, 2747 Hazelwood Street. I joined into the process of interviewing fellow residents and having them sign a petition. And everything that's been said here is kind of universal out in the public. We don't have a vision, so you guys doing this, excellent. We need a vision, and we need to make sure that it's funded. You have $240 million of our taxpayer money now. Is it going to be another 240? You know, what's going to happen? We don't know. We need to know that. But what really struck me, and I don't hear it talked about enough, the rest of the residents bring it up, but you have a gem here in the 10th most popular trail in the region. It's beautiful. Other communities are fighting to get a trail like this. We set up a pop-up to sign up petition for people that were against it on the trail. And what shocked me is that we had people sign up from Wayzata, Bloomington, Egan. They're coming here. So we got people coming to use our trail in our city. Factor that in. I made a couple of calls, one to the Rails to Trails Coalition in the United States, and I've got a conversation with them. They're stunned that we would be reversing a trail that's already dedicated. They're trying to develop trails. The last thing is, yeah, that's enough. You guys have it.
Thank you. Daryl Paulson. Can someone move the microphone down? Is Joe here? Oh,
I'll come up to it if you can't pull it. You can't pull out. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council members. I must say, when I heard about this 2 weeks ago and seeing the public statement that came out from the mayor and from Bill Knudsen, I was shocked. I was livid, okay? And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Because I've spent the better part of the last 10 years of my life here in Maplewood. I enjoy Maplewood tremendously, okay? In 2012, I was approached by a former mayor to talk about public transit and what that looks like in the city. And I asked that mayor at that moment, you know, what are we talking about? How long have we been talking about this project? And she said, well, we've been talking about a transit system like this for nearly 20 years or more. And I said, okay, let's see what we can do. So what I then was able to convince the Met Council of, I said, hey, I have worked with you guys in a volunteer capacity and advisor capacity for over 22 years. I have never been invited and I have never been asked to look at a public project that we support in the disability community under the Met Council. So can I have that opportunity to do that? So post-COVID, we were able to allow me to go on 2 trips relating to the BRT, bus rapid transit, okay? Those 2 trips changed my life tremendously because that brought me hope to Maplewood, what we can see for the vision of Maplewood. So the thing that I will tell you is that I heard from the residents, and I will tell you, I've been in constant contact with the Met Council today and every other day that I communicate with them. We're not getting rid of the trail. The trail is not going away. The trail needs to be resurfaced. I too agree that the Bruce Ventle Trail is a gem that we need to keep here in Maplewood, okay? So first of all, that trail's not going away. As far as any other issue that we heard about, like metro mobility, was a viable option for me and my family or other folks with physical challenges to get around. That's not true. I cannot take my daughter on metro mobility and get her around from place to place and let her go to school. So metro mobility does not work for those type of services. So I urge you guys to just really look at this and really understand that if you suspend this project, this means that the 4 years that I've looked at it and the 20 years that we've looked at it totally is something that we need to revisit. I agree we need to revisit it. So one of the suggestions that I would say to you, and I had several notes typed up tonight to give to you, but they were all in relationship to my conversations with the Met Council, so I didn't put them forward. I'm sorry, but one of the suggestions I would suggest is that we don't take the vote tonight. We allow the public comment period to go forward. The public comment period will consist and we'll start moving very aggressively in November 15th. And then on November 15th, that public comment period will last almost until the beginning of next year. And then at the beginning of January, I urge you guys to come back, and after that public comment period is looked at, we can look at bringing forth solutions to engaging folks in the next part of the process.
thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Caleb Olson.
Hello, yeah, I'm Caleb Olson.
I live at 2727 Hazelwood, and I have 4 young boys, and we greatly enjoy the Bruce Vento Trail. And I grew up on Hazelwood, and I grew up using that trail. I went to Weaver Elementary, and which is located right by the trail. And I also went to John Glenn, and when I was at John Glenn, I was on the cross-country running team, and we ran on that trail frequently. And then also in North St. Paul, where I went to high school, we used that trail a lot. So it's a real gem, and I just really want to support that. I am in support of the no rush line. I am in support of transit. I've used transit from Maplewood to get to the U of M when I went there, and my grandma, who was Christine Stone, and she grew up, or I'm actually living in her old house right now, which is kind of a neat thing. But she would take the transit down to the Capitol, and she was very active there. So I would be in support of us looking at improving what we already have in place, improving the infrastructure that's already in place rather than rebuilding a new infrastructure. And I find it hard in a way to relate to how the trail could be shared with bikers and walkers and runners and young kids too. When there's 90 buses a day, it seems like there's some safety hazards that could be involved with that. So let's see if I covered it all. Oh yeah, and I think it's a real benefit, just to back up Steve Samuelson's what he commented on the trail. People come from all over. I actually work in the fitness community, and I used to work at a bike shop, and it's just a real valuable asset to have these trails in the back of people's, that connect Maplewood all the way to Stillwater, all the way to St. Paul, all the way to the lakes. It's a real benefit. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Kim Schmidt. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Kim Schmidt, 1800 Phelan Place, Maplewood, Minnesota, and I lived there over 20 years. I would also like to emphasize the consideration of alternate routes. I think that bus rapid transit could work for Maplewood, and I am confused as to why we haven't considered Wiper Avenue or Highway 61 prior to this. It seems like we're kind of throwing something away that's sort of a gem of our community when we already have a lot of pavement that the buses can currently utilize. I would also like to bring up a different issue related to this line going through. I'm several blocks from it, so it's not going to be in my front yard or my backyard. But there are many people of color who that will be their front yard, their backyard. And the current conversation that we're having right now is about generational wealth and equity, and that people are building wealth within their families through their homes. And when you put this line in people's front yards or backyards, you will be diminishing the value of their home. I think that's a real strong consideration. We really need to think about the equity in our community. And you can say that the trail will still be there, but the canopy won't be there. And currently, children run up and down and bike up and down that trail. And right now, 1 in 3 children is considered obese. Without that canopy there and that trail right next to the buses, I don't think I'd want my child on a bicycle going right next to the bus like that. I don't think it's a safe option. So I am thankful that you're reevaluating this. However, I did re-watch the last meeting, and Mayor Abrams did say that she would withdraw she would make a motion to withdraw her support, Maplewood support, for the Purple Line. And I'm hoping that you will follow through with that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Torrin Gustafson.
Hello, my name is Torrin Gustafson. I currently live at 1773 White Bear Avenue North. I have lived there for 7 years, and I have grown up and lived in surrounding communities my entire life. On that point, we were talking about stakeholders. One of the biggest stakeholders I do not see mentioned in any of the conversations in this room regarding Purple Line, the ultimate end user. Who will be using this? Ultimately, at the very heart of every transit decision that is made, we need to keep in mind, not just keep in mind, but put at the very center, who is using this line and who will be using this line, and how can we attract riders and grow it. This summer, I had the opportunity to travel around Europe, and additionally, I've had the opportunity to visit San Diego and see how bus rapid transit systems have been successfully implemented. What we're looking at with the current alignment is not out of any sort of, it's not out of the question. I've seen this visiting my friend in Kent, England. There was a train line literally running through the backyards of people's homes. And this is not some sort of thing that can't happen. This, being a millennial and also having contact with people younger than myself, I also know that in Maplewood we do need better transit options, and we need it to run between people's businesses, their shops, and where they live. And the current alignment is one of the only alignments in Maplewood that would allow this. For 7 years, I've been asked about my opinion on this project. The reason why it was not run down White Bear Avenue is because, first of all, that requires frequent stops, which impacts ridership. Second of all, it wasn't run down White Bear Avenue because of the fact that there's already 3 bus routes down it. Similarly, down Highway 61, I find completely an unacceptable place to run a bus route. Down Highway 61, there are no sidewalks. There's barely a bench. It literally drops people off almost in the shoulder of the road. There's no shops. There's no houses, and there's just a couple of car dealerships with big parking lots and a Costco. That's it. How are we going to attract riders? How are we going to be appealing to future generations of Maplewood who want to see this? Already, I'm currently asked, why do I live in the East Metro? Why do I live here? Why am I not living off in, Minneapolis or St. Louis Park? My friends asked me that the other day, and I grew up here. I want to see this be the best city that it can be, the best region that it can be. And in order to do that, we need to look at best practices around the world and put transit users at the very heart of our decisions, not people who are literally not my backyard types, which we are seeing plenty of with this project. So I just want to voice my support for the Purple Line.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter Fisher. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight about the BRT line that is proposed for the area. I was taking a look at your resolution, and one of the things I want to start out first by saying is you have in the last paragraph, second line, toward the end of the second line, the modification study to be suspended. I would encourage, instead of suspended, to be changed to be modified to add time. And the reason I'm saying that is because we need BRT up through the area. It is critical. I've heard from many people from Century College, where we've got 17,000 students, down through people throughout the local area, from St. John's Hospital. I've also heard from another number of people when I've been out door knocking. Some of the things I think it's important to know is that I've followed this process over the years, and some of the solutions that people are mentioning out there is Highway 61. Right now, Highway 61 also becomes Arcade Street in St. Paul, and that is a very narrow street in St. Paul, barely 3 lanes wide. Originally, when they were looking at trying to build the line through there and coming through there, it would meant raising a number of businesses and nonprofits that are basically communities of color that they're taking advantage of. In other words, there's a lot of minority-owned businesses that would have to go away. When you take a look at the intersection of Maryland and Arcade, it's already a failed intersection. One of the problems the highway department's having right now in redesigning Arcade is because there's too much traffic on it. Adding more buses is going to require having to remove a lot of businesses or nonprofits that are serving low-income community through there. Some of the things that we have not heard a lot from are people who are not here tonight, people primarily of color. And some of them that I want to make sure that are engaged is that the Hmong community has 18 clans that are located just off Phelan Boulevard and Cook. Years ago, when this was first being put together, there was a stop at Cook Street that was being driven by the 18 clans because they wanted to make sure they had stops there, because the line that was originally being looked at, if it came up through Maplewood following the corridor, would service a large number of their people who live along that line. We have a high Hmong population through there. I also want to mention on the line is it's important that we take the time to make sure that we're getting input from everybody and realizing that in a central area, we can have both BRT and a trail. West Metro does this all the time with a number of their lines out there. You've got busy rail lines right next to trails. You've got bus rapid transit going next to trails. So it can be done. It needs to be done in a thoughtful way. And I think one of the important things that we have to realize is that this has got to be throughout the day. The students at Century College have nailed me on a regular basis because they don't have that available right now. So while I want to make sure that we take the time to do this right, we also have to keep a sense of urgency out there, because every year I hear from multiple students out there that the transit is not working. Why don't we have the purple line? Why aren't we advocating to get the purple line in so that they can get from point A to point B? And so besides Century College, there's also Solid Ground up there and several other organizations that serve homeless people or at-risk people up there. They need to be part of the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Peter, I didn't hear, you said there was a word in the third paragraph that you wanted to change. I didn't hear you. Resolution?
It reads right now in the second line, Minnesota, that the city of Maplewood recommends that the modification study be suspended. I would ask that suspended be struck and modified to add time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, we have Terry Mallett. Good evening.
Mayor and council members. I am also a member of the No Rush Line Coalition, but I'm speaking as a resident who lives on the Bruce Bento Trail. And we've done so much studying, so it's not just us residents that live there that don't want this. I don't want it for safety reasons. I would not allow, if I had grandchildren, to go on there with a bus going by it next to it. Right now, it's so beautiful. I'd hate to see all those trees go. It's one of the top 10 trails in Minnesota. So I just can't imagine why we would get rid of that. It's right behind a grade school, the safety of that. But other options were, 61 White Bear Avenue. But I have a lot of friends who have disabled children. And some are children, some are adults, and they can't get places because they don't have curb-to-curb side. I think we need to focus more on that curb-to-curb side. Getting them to, I have one friend who her son can't go to Century College because he can't ride a bus because of autism or whatever. He can't be with other people. He needs the one-on-one. We need more of that. I'm at the community center 5 times a week at least, and I'm seeing that Metro mobility coming and people waiting and saying, it was supposed to be here, it doesn't show up. We need to focus more on getting those buses there. Again, we had talked about, I heard, the value of your home going up with this. I've had several realtors tell me the longer I stay, the lower my value of my house is being on that trail. I've had several realtors tell me that. I just think we should keep that Bruce Bento Trail. It's a beautiful trail, one of the top 10 trails, and I do think it's a safety thing for kids on that trail. That trail, having it in my backyard, I watch all day long. All ages go. It's used constantly. And yes, you can put a trail next to a bus, but do you really want to ride your bike? You're out there to see the animals. You're out there for the quietness. I go for my walks. I want to think. I don't want a bus flying by me. They're saying 89 one way a day. How do you relax on the trail when that's there, and how is that safe? I think we find other ways. I think we need to really focus on getting people where they need to be, Metro Mobility or new tracks or whatever. And again, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Pat Vaughn.
Yeah, I think we should just leave the Bruce Bento Trail the way it is. And I think that
what they did with the bus lines. If they improved the bus lines that we already have, that'd be enough. And I'm opposed to the purple line mainly because of the Met Council. I don't think you can trust them, and the only thing that they're good at is spending money. So I think if you improved what you have on the bus lines now, the bus stops, you could work on the schedules and things like that. $450 million goes a long way, and I think that we're not addressing one of the main problems with people that ride the bus, and that's they don't feel safe. If we hired more cops and people felt safe, I wouldn't sit on the bus stop in the middle of the night or even in the daytime because I don't think it's safe. And unless you improve the safety of the bus lines and improve their output or whatever you want to call it, I don't think it'd work. But it's way too much money, and I don't think it would work. I think White Bear had the right idea.
Thank you. Bob Vaughn? Did I get your name right?
Barb.
Barb, okay.
Barb Vaughn.
Kind of hard to read,
Yes.
sorry.
I live on 1856 Phelan Place, and I do not think that you should ruin the trail by putting a bus on it. The people who would like to have this transit, you can figure out how to do it on another street. I mean, I know that you can do it. Someone can do it. I mean, look what they did to Frost. They did that whole street, put sidewalks in. We don't have sidewalks in our street. I love it that they have sidewalks. You know, you have to walk down the boulevard. So anyhow, I know that you could find someone who could fix it, that it would be a nice transit system. And Metro Mobility, I know that it works for a lot of people. My in-laws, their mother uses it from the nursing home to their house, and it works fine. You know, they're happy with it. So that's all I have to say. I really wish you would save the trail.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't read the first name. Withizer is the last name? Oh, she's the one who left, okay. Sean Robinson? Sean Robinson? Paul Anderson?
Thank you. First, I'd like to say I'm new to the city of Maplewood. We've only been here about 22 years. In our neighborhood, that's new. I'd like to say that I'm a proponent of public transit. All of my family members have used public transit at one time or another to get to work or school. When I first heard about this project, I was excited to be able to go to downtown St. Paul or downtown White Bear, not worry about parking, not worry about having a second drink and driving home. But when I started to really understand what the project was, I had a lot of concerns. You talked about public outreach. I learned about this project about 2 years into it. This last summer, I've been talking to a lot of my neighbors about it. They had no idea. I really think the city of Maplewood has lacked really explaining and getting this out to the citizens. You talked about cost, $450 million. I want to know, is that now dollars, or was that 2 years or 4 years ago dollars? I haven't heard tonight what it's going to cost to operate this annually. I would also like to know, where are these dollars coming from? Who's putting up the money? My other concern is that this is not servicing a broad range of the Maplewood citizens. This is not helping people over by Edgerton. It's not helping people over by McKnight. What is our plan? I mean, to spend this kind of money to service one little ribbon through the city of Maplewood, which is a large geographical expanse, isn't sensical to me. You talked about ridership. It has changed. The numbers are down. But how buses are being used has changed. Has anyone looked into that? How are we using buses? What can we do to make sure that what we do going forward benefits all of Maplewood, not just in 2024, but in 2030 and is fiscally responsible to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last person is Lee Benson.
Thank you for your time. So I have lived in White Bear for quite a long time. I was finally able to move out and get my own place in Maplewood, so I hopped a town over. And I haven't heard a lot of people, but I have ridden mass transit in my life. I would take a bus from White Bear Avenue and County Road E down to Maplewood, catch another bus from Maplewood to County Road C and Cleveland Avenue in Roseville to my job. And these bus routes, they're not timed correctly. You know, it's hard to find a connecting route. You know, if any of you use Google Maps, things like that, just take a look and see if you can get a type of bus route for where you're at. And I'm looking at the proposed line now. White Bear, 2 years ago or 1 year ago, they pulled out of it. Gem Lake pulled out of it. So, I mean, what's stopping us from pulling out with them? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I looked it up from where I live on Dieter Street. To get to Frost, to catch a bus in the first place, I can't get a bus. I would have to walk 3/4 of a mile to get on this supposed purple line. This purple line that's going to 7th Street and White Bear, or 7th Street and Highway 61, where they're not taking the line anymore. So I just don't understand why you're so persevering on it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes everyone that has signed up to speak tonight. We are going to now have an opportunity for the council to talk about what we've heard and about the resolution that is before the council. Maybe a little bit of groundwork needs to happen based on some of the questions that were raised. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the Purple Line. The two bodies that are really the governing bodies for the Purple Line is the Met Council and it's Ramsey County. If you've looked at the newspaper articles about Maplewood challenging the process being used by the Met Council, you probably saw the fact that Met Council's response was, we don't need the city's approval anyway. And that is, unfortunately, the truth. Some of you are nodding your heads because you're aware of that. The city does not have the ability. We don't govern the Vento Trail. We don't own the Vento Trail. What I see as our avenue going forward to get transit is for us as a community to gather together and say, we need data and we want to help figure out how to bring effective, reliable transit to our community. That's what I see as the issue. But just so that everyone's aware, our role as I see it is to come forward as a community. Because I would think that working as community partners with the Met Council, we could wind up with some really great transit on this side of town. That's really what my goal is. My goal is to take a pause. Let's step back because I really think some steps have been missed. Where is the data? Where is the engagement? And I would really appreciate it. I was taking notes up here on your comments. I appreciate the comments about other stakeholders that really should be at the table and other suggestions in terms of how do we get an effective transit system over here in the East Metro, because that's really, I think, the bottom line is that we've got to figure out a way to do that, and the best way to do that is to figure out that together. So I see council members, it's our opportunity now. Councilmember Juniman, you had some things you wanted to say?
Sorry, thank you. I think we've heard some things that we all feel as well, but we're the ones that have to try and make something work. And I said it earlier in the evening, and I'm going to say it again, because I'm hoping that this is one of the messages that the two entities that the mayor referred to will get. We need to be able to trust and rely on them. And right now, that's not there for me, and I presume it's not there for the rest of my colleagues either. And so that's the first point we need to make with them. And she's right. They can tell us to go jump in a hole and pull in the dirt and run their bus wherever they want. And I don't want that. That's why I've been trying to, if you will, play nice all this time, is to see if we could get them to listen to us and want to make it work. We thought about this a long time ago, and I asked about, I think it's 3 years ago now, the only ones that can change the designation of the Bruce Ventle Trail is the Ramsey County Rail Authority, because they own it. So it's kind of like when people say to us, why don't you put a stop sign at that intersection? It's because we can't. Guess who decides where you're going to have stop signs? The county. They do the whole traffic count and all that stuff. So we have to work within the parameters of the rights that we have and the rights that you have, but you have to know that they don't see us as having limitless rights, obviously, because the incident that brought this to light wasn't shared with us by them. It was shared by someone else. So I do understand the people who have spoken up tonight, and particularly Representative Fisher. He hears from a lot of people that need transit. I understand that. We have too. But he's been trying to work with these people longer than I have. May the good Lord above bless him. But I don't know where I can possibly make them do what we want. So that's where the term play nice has come from. But for now, I want to suspend playing nice, just so you know. But only to make the point, you need to come to us, and we need to work this out where this can really go, serve the people who need it, and make most of us at least passably happy. That's really all we can hope for, and that's what I would like to see. But we don't get to determine where, because we up here don't make any money decisions about this either. Met Council can dive in and pay for things with all of our money. That's what the power they were imbued with in the 1970s. We won't get into the debates that have been said whether they should even be here anymore, because we don't have any power over that either. So I am just as shocked as the mayor was at how this just came out of like flying in from nowhere, that they had this new option that they were just going to do. It's like, really? Fascinating. How come we didn't hear about it? So I think they need to be convinced by you and us that they have to come to the table with all of us. Because in the end, wherever this goes, it will serve people of Maplewood who are needing it. And there will be more people who will need it. This isn't just about us now, it's about down the line. But we have to convince them that we've at least thought this through. And again, adding to the list of stakeholders. And there are some stakeholders who aren't here tonight, as was brought up, and don't have the same situation and the same life to draw from that we do. And they have to be brought into this as well. It's just the way it is. I have asked, and as part of this tonight, we were also said we should say what we wanted to see. In addition to the engagement, if you will, I would like them to go back and do what the mayor asked in June. Where are the numbers? Yoo-hoo! You know, the 2017 numbers and the 2019 numbers and the 2020 numbers don't mean anything anymore. So we need to see when we started to open up from pandemic, and a progression 6 months later, and a progression 6 months later. Are you keeping track of your numbers, and how are they changing? Let us know. That's a fact that we need. I also think it's time for them to come back and explain, because they explained to us, I think it was in 2017, although it's becoming a blur now, that why White Bear Avenue and why Highway 61 don't work. It was referred to earlier this evening, but a lot of it has to do with, if you've tried to go down White Bear Avenue anytime after 3 o'clock in the afternoon towards St. Paul, I hope you have your lunch packed because you might need it. And Highway 61, the time of day where they're now saying is rush hour, has expanded. It starts about 1:45 in the afternoon. So where you're going to put and express anything on those streets just doesn't appear at this point anyway. So they have to come back to us with that engineering and say why they have chosen this route. And then maybe we ask, well, where's somewhere else where we can possibly get what you're trying to get here? But they haven't brought any of that back to us, much as to you. And if they actually think people are going to remember their explanation from 2017, really get serious. That isn't how it happens. You have to reprocess things and bring them up to where you are now, thus the mayor asking for numbers. So we have real stuff to deal with. We're not in a position to want to say, well, we don't want it there, because she's right. They can say, well, tough luck, we heard you, but we're putting it there anyway. And I'd rather stay with the process and try and convince them of some way to get it where it belongs. I'm not saying it'll work, I'm saying I'm hoping it'll work. The other thing that I noticed when reading something in the paper the other day, not that you can rely on the paper all the time, but it was in the article, is they told us it was going to be all electric buses. That's fascinating. The Gold Line was supposed to be electric buses, and now it's 5 electric buses and 17 diesel buses. That's kind of a big differential. So we need to be able to trust that they're going to talk to us and see what it is we need and want, and that the information they're going to give us might be semi-reliable. Now, I'm not a magic person, so I don't know how I'm going to get this, but I think we should push for it. Mass transit is important enough. We need to push for the ability to trust each other and come up with a solution to something that can't go away if we're going to survive as a community beyond those of us who are sitting here. And I think we also need somehow to get them in the same room at some point. That ought to be fascinating. First of all, get them here. But to live, face-to-face, see what people's concerns are. Why don't we want this on that particular spot? It's one thing to see it in a written report. It's another thing to deal with people in reality. So I think we need to start making some of those things clear to people. And I'm not afraid to bring up, well, you said all electric buses, but now you're telling the Gold Line people they're only going to get 5. Right. Be honest. Tell us what is really coming down the pike. We're trying to be honest with you on what we need and what our community wants. They have to be honest from the other side of this. This is a no-go. Any large project in life, you know that. Any agreement, you know, whether you've had to replace your roof in the last 6 months, isn't that fun? Or buy a new car or whatever. Unless you feel right about the people you're dealing with, you don't have a tendency to go with those people. Well, I think we need to start trying to rebuild how we go together to get a project done. I know it sounds pie in the sky, but I don't know what else we do. These are the people that have charge of this land. They own it and they oversee it, and they collect taxes right out from under us. So I don't think there's a way out of dealing with them, but we need to make it clear why it's not working the way it is. It's just where I'm coming from, but I think we need to start with, we want public transportation and we know you can provide it. Now, how are we going to work together? That's where I'm coming from. I understand if that's not real enough and right this minute enough, but that's where we are. We want trust to come back, and we want to get real. Because until we get real, everybody's going to be riding a bus that has nobody on it because it doesn't go to anywhere. We need to tell them that. We heard that tonight. Empty buses. Well, yeah, I wouldn't get on the bus either if it was going to take me 7 hours to get from. My husband worked at 3M, and we live right over by Keller Park. And we gave up after the first 2 years we lived here because he would have to leave home at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to his job at 3M at 8. Okay, I'm thinking that's not real reliable public transportation, but I could be wrong. So people who need it to be reliable. So that we got to build in the reliability piece and the trust piece. I'm done. I just thought you should know where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Councilmember Knutson is next. This is the time for the council to discuss. Councilmember Knutson?
Mayor, observations here is I think we've opened up a lot of work for us, and I'm fine with that because, frankly, this thing has been going on around us, and in the last month or so I've really gotten involved. But prior to that, I can't say I was big time involved. So I think when we got to this point, it's time for us to step up and formulate opinions. But if someone came here tonight thinking that we were going to withdraw, I don't think that's that's not what we're doing. So I'm fine with moving forward with the resolution. I'm fascinated in what I learned about the No Rush Line group. They have data, resources, transit studies, and all that. I would love to see that, and I'm assuming that's not on condition that they're willing to provide that information. So I think I've learned a lot tonight. I also have wondered that, asked the mayor, I said, I don't think we have control over the Vento Trail, and that was answered correctly. So we've got a lot of work to do. And again, I was saying earlier that words matter, and I'm okay with Peter's suggestion on the, so.
Actually, I think Councilmember Cave was next, and then Councilmember Villavicencio. We have lights up here, and I try to pay attention as to the order that council members indicate that they want to speak. So, Councilmember Cave. It's the light panel right here.
Yes. Thank you all for being here, and it was wonderful hearing what you had to say. I know a lot of you, I've read emails, and I've had phone calls from you. And it was really nice you came up here and were very, not just supportive, but you came up here with ideas. You came up with stakeholders. You came up with ideas, what we could do. People mentioned metro mobility. People mentioned new tracks. Some people said that they've used it and it doesn't really work. So that's good to know that these resources after COVID aren't really working that well either. So these are things that maybe our city can get on and get them working for our citizens too. One thing I wanted to say is my kids grew up on Prosperity on the Gateway Trail, and the one thing that's never been mentioned is there isn't a safety issue on Gateway Trail. The crime, you don't have, for all the people that are going in everybody's backyards and, bikes and everything, it's always been safe. It's always been wide open, neighbors, no neighbors. It's such a gem that I couldn't believe that this was a piece that, Ramsey County and the Met Council wanted to take away. Absolutely, it's just ridiculous when there's other ideas out there. And I don't feel that we have to give in to these ideas just because the Met Council does or the Ramsey County Corridor because they own it. We have rights too as citizens of Maplewood. We've protected this land. We have protected our neighbors. We have police and safety who've protected us on these gateway trails. And to say that if you put in a light rail that it's going to be safe, it's just, I wouldn't have my kids or grandkids on there either, like the lady said. There's no way. You guys did have wonderful ideas. In that no rush line group, I think is a great stakeholder. I think this is something that, Councilmember Knutson said, this is bigger than This is bigger than what we've taken it. It's turned bigger than what we thought it was, and it really needs to take a major pause. And we really need to look at improving infrastructures for our bus right now, because there's people taking the bus right now. I know Nikki's on the bus right now, and she needs the bus stops to be safe, and so do other people. This isn't something that we can say, hey, that needs another 20 years before that's fixed too. So there's a lot of things that came out of this that's just amazing. One of the things I believe non-motorized trail, to make something permanent with the Bruce Ventle would be something I'd be in favor in the future here, or near future. But I also want to ask, my council members, and the mayor, when we talked about this at the last meeting, we talked about withdrawing support for the Purple Line. And I think that needs to be done tonight. I think that's what the Met Council needs to hear. But just wait, but I think that's the only way they are going to see that we are serious, that we want something, but they can't tell us where it's going to go if we don't want it there. They can't shove it down our throats. We're here for you guys, and I really think that we need to withdraw our support until we redo the whole thing and not just suspend it. I think they need to know that we're serious, because otherwise they're going to...
You hold on. We need to have the discussion, and you know what? This is really about having civil discourse. So please help us. Yeah. We're trying really hard to figure out a way forward. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, in drafting this, Councilmember Cave, the Met Council can basically make the decision, and they don't need to consult with us at all. They have the authority. The Rail Authority owns the Vento Trail. What I'm trying to do is carve out a constructive way that we can work in this system and that we can come up with transit that's going to work for everybody. And that's why it was drafted like this. Yeah. In essence, my intention is to step backwards and to slow this down. Now, I'm not talking about putting this on the back burner because we need transit. We need to figure this out. It's about making this... We need to find solutions. And I'm trying to in a manner in which we can encourage civil discourse, that we can discuss things and we can come up with solutions. That's what I'm trying to do. In terms of withdrawing our support, we're talking about reevaluating our support. We're trying to be constructive going forward on this. I can't say that the Met Council has been constructive in the way that they have handled us. Exactly. In the fact that they have not given us information. And I certainly want to hear council members' ideas about a resolution. If you want to, when we get to making a motion going forward, if council members want to propose some type of amendment to this, I'm certainly open to this. But my point is this: let's look at where we're trying to go. We're trying to get to a solution, and that's really what this is about. It's a constructive way of opening up discourse. It's a constructive way of requesting data. And certainly, one of the comments that I received in an email was that we certainly have gotten the Met Council's attention. And that's really what the goal is to say that this is not okay with Maplewood. This is not how we do business. So, Councilmember Cave, did you want to finish what you were saying?
I did want to finish. I just wanted to say that my backing with pulling out or withdrawing our support is they've already gone ahead, and you're trying to play nice and everything, but I really think that, pulling your support is going to show that, or withdrawing our support is going to show that they're already coming in and walking over us. A couple weeks ago, you just found out, that they're plowing ahead. And I think something, that was just 2 weeks ago. If you wouldn't have noticed that, wouldn't have brought it up, we wouldn't be asking, or we wouldn't be going through all this. And I think that they need to know that, it's something that we don't support them just going through and taking property. And, you know, you said they can still do it, but if they have our support, then it looks like we're behind them. If they don't have our support and they go through it, it's 100% on them.
You know, Councilmember Cave, thank you for that. I do appreciate that, your thoughts on that. I'm trying to get us to a point where we can, you know, differences are going to be inevitable, right? We're going to have differences of opinion, but division, I think, is a choice. And in looking forward at this, what I wanted to accomplish was, let's air our differences, let's figure out a way forward. Instead of what we all know today, we're living in a very divided culture, and I consciously made a decision that instead of division, let's talk about how we can move forward in a constructive way. So I don't disagree with you in theory. I'm trying to move forward and stay away from division. I'm trying to look at how we can constructively resolve this. So Councilmember Villavicencio was next, and then Councilmember Knudsen. And we might have another round up here.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to reiterate what my opinions are, but I think, you know, genuine engagement is something that we need to continue to talk about, and what does that look like for us, and what does that look like for Maplewood? So that's the kind of conversation that I would like to have, is what does genuine engagement look like? But I did want to thank everybody for their comments, even if their comments were something that I don't agree with, because I think this is an important part of democracy. I do feel like it's important to address the fact that there were many comments around Metro Mobility. I too also use Metro Mobility, and I will tell you, like in a meeting for today, I would not be able to use Metro Mobility because I don't know when this meeting is going to be done. And so hence the fact that the city bus is integrated transportation. And if there are folks with disabilities that need extra assistance, that's what personal care attendant services are for. And anybody who is 16 or older can be a PCA if they can clear a background check. So I think that's an important aspect to consider. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Knudsen.
Yeah, like I say, we haven't been inert on all this, but on the other hand, we've
been out of the loop.
We've been, yeah, and so I've got calls from legislators, county commissioners, and so forth, and I learned something that's kind of interesting. Is the feds basically put in motion a post-COVID ridership survey requirement. In other words, so this thing has to be done. Didn't know that until I was pointed out. So I guess what I'm saying is, we're learning by basically saying we want to reset, we want to look at this differently, engage in a dialogue, in a cooperative that is just going to gain a ton of information. Look what I learned about the gentleman that talked about all those resources. Mm-hmm. I mean, that takes a long time to look through all that and some dedication. So I just want to say that, you know, there are other things going on, including this requirement, that we need to be aware of and engage. So
I'm glad to hear that. That's another thing that no one has told us, that it was actually something that's required. You know, in putting this together, I've had conversations with City Manager Coleman, because one thing that we really do well here in Maplewood is we do engagement well. We develop engagement processes. We figure these things out. And I want to ask her about some of the possible engagement options. My vision, because this is not about, we need to keep this discussion moving forward, and we need to do it in a timely manner. And so my thought was that we would develop an engagement process. This is what the City of Maplewood expects for our community in terms of moving forward with transit. And it includes, I've talked with City Manager Coleman about, why don't we survey our residents? We've got a survey coming up anyway, so she's going to talk about some of that, some of the engagement pieces, because I think that goes to Councilmember Villavicencio's comment about what does engagement look like. This isn't about just dreaming things up. We're already very good at this, and we already know how to do it. And that's what I think, that besides the data piece, that I'm learning more and more about how much data we don't have that hasn't been shared with us. And then the other piece is the engagement piece, because those two important components really need to come together. And I think that's how we really solve problems. That's how we address differences instead of falling into division. So, City Manager Coleman, do you want to outline some of the engagement pieces? We've talked about these last week.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. As the Mayor indicated, we do a community-wide survey every other year, and this is the year for us to do one. When we do the survey, there are certain, I think there's like 30 questions that are always the same, so we can benchmark our improvement or how we're doing.
Who does the survey? Where does it come from?
It used to be called the National National Citizen Survey, and they merged with a group called POCO, so I'm not sure if it's POCO. I don't know whose name is on it now, but they've been around forever, and cities all over the United States use them for this service. This year, after talking to the mayor and our communications staff, we've agreed that we get 3 extra questions, and then we can buy additional questions if we want. And when I asked the mayor, is this the time to use transit as a topic, and it seems like a natural fit right now. So we're going to be doing that with our survey to our residents, so you can watch for that. In addition, the mayor and I talked about having a workshop with the city council to talk about what engagement looks like to the 5 of them. Also, taking upon some of the testimony that we've heard tonight from residents, I think there's some things that we can take from that, including how do we use the No Rush Line Coalition. There's a lot of people who have put a lot of time into that. You have a lot of resources and information that you can share with us. So the trick will be, how do we bring everybody together, including St. John's Hospital and the mall and some of our bigger employers, as well as, I think, the person who said, who are the riders? We don't even know who all the riders are and what the needs are. So we really do have some homework to do, besides some of the things, the resources that you brought forward tonight. So there's a lot of work for us to do to decide how is the best way to engage with people. We talked about maybe a steering committee of people from the business community, people from council, people from the Rush Line Coalition, all of these people working together to look at solutions. So I think I've worked with the mayor now for some time, since 14, and we both have the can-do attitude that there's nothing we can't try to figure out. And I think this is one of those situations where the more we talk to each other and engage with each other, we'll come up with better solutions and hopefully get the Met Council to understand what we need.
Council members, turn your lights on if you have other comments. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if someone in the audience has a solution. They should come up and say something to us afterwards. But there doesn't, in my mind, there just doesn't seem to be a solution to the fact that ultimately we can be bullied into this. It's just not undoable for them. They will step in and say, okay, we try to include you, go, we own the land, we're putting it through there. And I don't want that to happen. So I think the engagement piece where you bring your ideas, we bring this, yes, we bring the ideas from you and from our staff to them and say, okay, this is what could work for our community. And we have people in our community who need transportation. We just don't want it be clubbed to death with it. We want to make it work. And we should be given the, if you will, honest respect of knowing what this community needs more than they do. But you're not going to get that by hitting them over the head with a mallet. I wish we could, it would be quicker, but it won't work. And so the mayor's idea of as much engagement as we can get and convince them, because they don't do engagement. It's pretty obvious. They were talking about an option that we weren't even engaged in. So, they don't. And the county certainly isn't famous for it either. So we have to be the ones that say, look, this is how we do it. And when we finally get there, you, meaning them, will know what this community is looking for. Because right now they seem to be looking over the tops of our heads. And so that's why I want to do what the mayor said. I want us to move forward without it being the permanent, oh, we'll be on hold. That's not an answer for anybody. You'll all still be worked up and we'll all be up in the air. And what are we going to do? And it won't solve anything. Thank you, Mayor. I'm done. I won't talk anymore.
Okay, council members, Councilmember Cave.
How do I say this? The Met Council moved forward, months ago, and up until 2 weeks ago that we knew how far they had moved forward. What assurances do we have today that they're still not going to move forward after we go through all this work?
We're going to have to bring the Met Council to the table.
Uh-huh.
And have discussions with the Met Council, and that may be something that we want to do when what I envision is working out our engagement process, because right now we do not support the proposed purple line that they are planning. We don't even have that in paper. I learned about it by accident and had it confirmed by a Met Council staff. That's the concern about this. There's nothing in paper. It was not even going to be released until November 15th at a committee meeting.
Okay, and that's my huge concern is, where are they, who said they're even stopping?
So here is my suggestion, is that the purpose is to take steps back and to engage. I would like Maplewood, with our residents, to come together and say, this is the data that we need. We need to do a survey of our residents. We want to participate in this, and we want to be at the table. We want stakeholders to be part of this.
And they can say no.
And bring the Met Council to a council meeting and lay it out for them. But we need to have our plan first. I want to be in a position, because Maplewood does public engagement. We know how to do that. And I want to be able to tell them at council, this is what our community needs.
Correct, and I agree 100%. Who's stopping them from going tomorrow forward? I mean, we're saying that the Met Council is going to put brakes on it right now until we come back with ideas and then present them?
They've made two public statements in the newspaper, one in the St. Star and Tribune saying they'd work with us, and Victoria, also our county commissioner, said the same thing. We have to understand that they're truthful, that they want to work with us. What else are you going to do?
Withdraw?
Well, we don't take out the hammer yet.
Councilmember Cave, our withdrawal means absolutely nothing if withdrawing support.
Right.
They don't.
Well, with suspending support
We're
would mean nothing either, if they can do the same thing.
No, what we're asking them to do is to suspend the modification study that we learned about, that isn't even going to be out in writing until November 15th, that they suspend that until we have come forward with our engagement process and we get all of this data. That's what I'm asking for. We need to take some steps back, and we need to get them to slow this down, because this is not working.
And
I would much rather have contributions to the Met Council and suggestions to them.
Oh, and so would I.
Okay, then we have an obligation as city council members, I think, to come forward and tell the Met Council, this is what we want. This is what our plan is. This is what our community needs.
And in a way, you're forcing the issue. Sorry.
Councilmember
In a way,
Juniman.
you're forcing the issue so that in order to not do that, they'll have to step in it, to be quite frank. And, there's one person that hasn't been pulled into this yet, the governor, since he makes the appointments to the Met Council. I'm not saying that that has to happen, but I'm also not saying it doesn't have to happen.
I'm just not okay doing nothing.
Oh, neither am I.
I want to be able
Neither
to
am
be
I.
constructive, and I want to open up that dialogue,
And if
because
refuse,
they
we've
have
got-
not done this right. They have not
Exactly.
done this right, and
And,
we have
and
an
I
obligation
feel
to
we
correct
can
it.
go ahead and open up the dialogue and do everything and remove our support. That's how I feel.
So, okay, hold on. So would you please then propose an amendment to the resolution that's in front of us? What would you
Yes.
suggest?
That we withdraw support from the purple
Okay, but
line.
we need the language. If you're going to make a motion,
Well, maybe I can have the lawyer help me with the language, please.
And I'm happy to listen to your suggestions and chime in if I think I need to, but
Okay.
I I think that from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're talking about wordsmithing the resolution in a way that, you might feel most comfortable with, and I don't necessarily feel like that's something I want to get involved in, but I will listen and chime in if necessary.
Okay. Then I will motion, let me find where. I will motion to approve the amended resolution withdrawing support. Hang on one second here. Withdrawing support for the Purple Line bus rapid transit project within the city of Maplewood.
And would there be do you want to add anything about engagement?
You know what? I guess that would be, we can have everything in there except the last paragraph would be changed.
Okay, so what would be,
So then in the
the language.
Sure. So let's look at the resolution on page 147. All the language in the resolution, the amended part of the resolution would be the last paragraph, and it would read, "Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Minnesota, that the City of Maplewood recommends withdraw support for the Purple Line." I didn't wear my glasses, so I'm sorry. And where? Which one?
Want me to hold it for you?
Oh,
Are you trying to craft something?
yep.
I would suggest, I would go along with that if it says that they suspend the modification study to create an engagement plan with the city to evaluate future transit option routes that work effectively for all.
Yes.
We have to have those components together.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we are just adding to the division, and we are not solving the problem.
Fair enough,
Because
fair enough.
without Met Council agreeing that they're going
Yes.
to come forward and engage with us, we're not going to get anywhere.
I agree with you.
Okay.
So then that.
So now therefore be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Maplewood withdraw support for the Purple Line,
And that the City of
and
Maplewood.
that the modification study be suspended to create an I guess I'm making the motion. That the modification study be suspended to create an engagement plan to evaluate future transit option routes that work effectively for all. Period.
Yeah, I accept that amendment. I mean, that's
Okay?
just like that.
So that will be the motion?
Yes.
Is there a second to the motion? No one's going to second it? Okay, then council members, let's go try another motion that will pass.
I'm not into making a motion right this minute, but
Okay?
I have, that finally says something that I can clear the clouds away, but I don't know what that presumes we want from them. So if I don't know, then how are they going to know? I mean, I thought we were taking a stand so that we would get somewhere. So if we do this without saying, I mean, then we're up in the air again, and we've just shot transit in both feet. So I don't know. I'm not saying that.
What is it that's, instead of saying that we are.
I know, I heard it,
Okay.
and I heard her.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's take, council members, let's take one step back, and we can have further discussion. You know, this is what democracy is about, folks. This takes time to
Yes.
figure this out, all right?
Right.
We've got to get the language correct, and it's not easy to do it. I think we understand we're taking a step back, and that we want to do is, we want to collect data, we want to have an engagement process. We do not want the Met Council moving forward with their modification studies without input from us.
And that's what this says.
Right. So, Councilmember Villavicencio.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a friendly amendment is to strike the word suspend and then modify to add time.
Timeframe expanded.
Engagement, for engagement purposes.
To modify, say the language again.
To modify to add time for engagement purposes.
Are you making that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to second that motion? Councilmember Villavicencio, it's your motion.
The motion is to strike the word suspend and to add modify to add time for engagement purposes.
Does this still also have the withdrawal support for the purple line, which was originally in that motion, since you're adding a friendly amendment?
It wasn't an amendment to your amendment. It was an amendment to the original language on the last paragraph.
Okay, did we say there wasn't one on mine? Did it die?
It wasn't a
Okay, we didn't
second.
state it, so I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It died.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So it was just to strike the word suspend and to add modify to add time for public engagement.
So the original, first sentence resolution, reevaluating support would stay as currently written.
Okay, so do you want me to say the whole thing?
No, I'm just
Okay.
clarifying.
Oh, yes.
We just want to make sure that the language is correct.
Yeah.
Because we want the record to be clear.
It's important, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion to strike the word suspend and to add, modify to add time for public engagement purposes.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
Because it doesn't flow and I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not reading
The
it.
only word you want to change is suspend, because when you read it,
Okay.
we recommend that the modification study be modified?
Oh, well,
No.
Just
to
change the
add
words.
extra time that's not in there.
You want to delete the word suspend?
Yes.
Put in
Okay.
add time, because it says create an engagement plan. It says,
But to add add time.
Time.
It doesn't say add time in it currently.
no, but I mean, this all says engagement.
Yeah, so you didn't have to put the engagement part, like I was saying, just the add time part.
Do you want to read it?
I believe, sorry, I need to be on my mic here. I believe what Councilmember Villavicencio has added would be the last paragraph where it says, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Maplewood recommends that the modification study timeline be expanded to create an engagement plan to evaluate future transit options and routes that work effectively for all. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Is moved by Villavicencio, seconded by Knutson, and I'll ask the city manager to read that one more time.
Okay. So the change will say in the final paragraph, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Maplewood, Minnesota, that the City of Maplewood recommends that the modification study be expanded in time, or have expanded time to create an engagement plan to evaluate future transit options, routes that work effectively for all.
Okay. Further discussion. I'm going to ask each council member if, for their thoughts on the modification. Keep in mind that this is a resolution reevaluating support for the Purple Line bus rapid transit project within the city of Maplewood.
Right.
That's what this resolution is about. We are reevaluating our support.
Yep.
So, Councilmember Juniman.
I think people are missing that we are reevaluating our support. We're not withdrawing it right this minute because we want to choke something out of them that would work for us. And I think right now, that's the only way you can do it. Because if we just go, well, then they're going to get snotty because they can, and they're up here somewhere, and extract your taxes and put transportation totally away from us. That is not what we're after. So, we're saying, right, in the very first paragraph,
Right.
that this is about where the purple line goes. What do? We have to run after this little motion and read it out loud to them so they get it, that we don't like it the way it is? Of course, I don't know. Maybe they have too many attorneys and they won't know what we said. I'm not sure. Is there anything in that last paragraph where we could be more definite about because they're supposedly starting an engagement period on the 10th or 11th or something of November. I mean, so, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a way where they can't sneak around this. How about that? That's what I'm after.
City Manager Coleman.
I think in my discussions with Metropolitan staff, they are paying attention to what we write tonight. And they wanted to come to our next meeting. And I said, wait a minute, we're going to design the engagement process. You're not. So they are waiting for us to talk back to them and tell them what we want. I think this resolution does that. And I think that they will want to come to the table. And I really believe they're going to suspend some of the dates they have lined up right now because of what we're doing tonight. So they are prepared to take pause. Now, I'm talking to a staff person, not the policymakers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're headed in the right direction. And I think we'll have, it's what's been said many times here in the last few minutes, I think we have a better chance of controlling our destiny by going and ask them to come to the table with us as opposed to saying, we're walking away, we're out. I don't think we're going to get anything by doing that. That's just my professional opinion, having worked with the Met Council for 30 years. And they don't do engagement very well, but this is our opportunity to say, when you're in Maplewood, you do it our way.
And, Mayor?
Councilmember Juniman.
I think that's ultimately what we want. We want them to see that this is the way we do things and that we don't just stymie the whole concept because the project doesn't look like we want it to. And I think we are by making this statement, we are saying, look, one city already pulled out and you just kind of put your middle finger in the air and went forward. So I'm not sure that's the answer till we do something more. And I'm sorry, but I can't just forget about the people who I had 2 younger people call me and say, I want transportation in Maplewood. Okay, I can't forget those people. It's just that we don't happen to want it the way it looks right now. And I think that's what we're saying here. And if we get some kind of a bad news response from them, we'll have to go back to the drawing table and possibly do what Councilmember Cave said. If they miss this, if the goes streaking by them and they don't get it, then we'll have to take the next step.
Any other council members
Yes.
before we call the question?
Yes.
Councilmember Cave.
I am concerned with the time, putting that in there, just because that limits us, and what kind of time frame does it give us? When you start,
What I
when you start
envisioned
wording.
for developing an engagement process was the month of November. And that we bring that forward to them and that we keep this process, we keep discussion. I think we all know in our lives that discussion and open dialogue matters. This, as you can tell, is a really messy kind of, I mean, this government can get really messy. We're trying to do the right thing.
The mess here.
And we want something for our residents. We want something for our businesses. I don't know that I heard anyone, maybe except one, who I thought maybe wasn't in favor of transportation, but I believe we need transportation. What that looks like, I would much rather be part of the discussion than to have the Met Council say, we're pulling all transit, we're not going to pay any attention to the East Metro, and we're not doing anything. That doesn't do anything. And that just adds to the division that we have so much of in our culture at this time.
And I will say that I still back my withdrawal for the support for the purple line, for this resolution. I would want it in there still. I am for going ahead and working on how we want the proposed transportation to look. I think that's important that all of you are included in it, and should have been from the beginning. So I just want to state that that's just my stance
Can I make a friendly amendment that I think might address your amendment and your suggestion and try to bring this together because dialogue works. If we were to rename it, a friendly amendment, a resolution withdrawing support for the purple line, that's at the very beginning, and then include what City Manager Coleman added, that, okay, we're not supportive of the plan that you have right now, but what we want to do is we want to, and would you read the rest of it right now?
The very last one?
Yes, because that's really the now therefore be it resolved. But,
That the City of Maplewood recommends that the modification study timeframe be expanded to create an engagement plan to evaluate future transit options and routes that work effectively for all.
And that's where I feel I would, yes.
Okay, but
that's exactly
this
what
is
I.
Councilmember
Okay.
Villavicencio's motion.
Okay.
And I made a friendly suggestion.
So you're changing
for
the first line to
Yes,
say
the first
withdraw?
line, resolution withdrawing support for the purple line, bus rapid transit project within the city of Maplewood. That would be the friendly amendment to your amendment, or to your resolution.
In wanting to, work together, I mean, I will accept your friendly amendment to it.
Okay.
I will say I'm not okay with the first part of it. I'm uncomfortable with that part of it.
But you will accept the friendly amendment?
That's your part of the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay? You will accept I just want to make sure the record is clear.
No, that's bad.
Yeah, okay, let's do that part.
Okay. So-
we have to, with this, that's the thing, right, Mary Lee, is that we don't work solely, individually, right?
No.
We have to work together as a team.
Yes.
So I want us to come together so that the whole community can come together and come up with some true plans for Maplewood that work for everybody.
Absolutely. So, council members, just to reiterate, the drafted resolution in our council packet will now read, this is a resolution withdrawing support for the Purple Line Bus Rapid Transit Project within the city of Maplewood. And then the other amendment is as City Manager Coleman read. Let's read that one more time.
Last paragraph.
And then I'm going to call the question after that.
No, I have
Marilyn,
one
or
suggestion.
has something to
I'm sorry.
suggest.
Before you call a question, I do have one suggestion that might clarify it for her and her.
I'm fine.
Well, let's go to that.
Let's do that first.
Resolution withdrawing support for the Purple Line Bus Rapid Transit Project as it currently exists within the city of Maplewood.
Yeah, then we need that.
That's better.
Bingo.
Okay.
That takes my angst away.
See, well, there's a reason it gets
That currently exists. So that is an amendment, and a friendly amendment, and a second friendly amendment. All right.
Madam Mayor, could I just jump into?
It's too late for him, I'm sorry.
Yes, so
You had a
it
chance.
sounds like the Councilmember Villavicencio who made the motion is okay with the two friendly amendments. I just want to make sure that Councilmember Knutson, who seconded it, is also comfortable with those two amendments, which is important as well.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you for that clarification. We want to make sure that we do this right. So, thank you. Council members, is there any question on what we are voting on?
No.
We don't need to read it again?
No.
No, please.
Okay, and I think that
He's begging you, no.
democracy is messy sometimes, but it gets us to a good resolution,
Yes.
which absolutely encourages me on what we can do moving forward with this. So, council members, with further ado, the amended motion. City Clerk Sint, did you get all of that?
I have it too.
Okay.
Should we do it one more time?
Good.
Just kidding.
All those council members in favor of the resolution as amended signify by indicating aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council members. We worked through it, and I think that that really is a testament that we can move forward and that we can come to a good resolution. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Stay tuned. November, we will be looking at our engagement process. So council members, with that, Our agenda is completed. We're adjourned.